are you?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Community Board 7's Transportation Committee and our June committee. We have a packed agenda. I'm Elizabeth Caputo and
Jami Floyd.
We're the co-chairs. Thanks for joining us tonight. I guess the first item on the agenda is to approve
the agenda.
One person who took a waiver.
Yes, that's true. Thank you.
Who should be joining remotely.
Yes.
And if she isn't yet, I know she will be.
And as we're waiting for folks to be in. Yes, traveling.
She has continued work travel. She promises to see us in the fall.
Who is the she?
Sofia.
Okay.
God, she's been away a while.
Yeah, she's doing that extended project.
Yeah.
Sure is.
So as we have a really busy agenda and we want to get folks out at a decent hour, we'll get started. Motion to approve the agenda. Once good. Okay.
Thank you. We have a second.
All right. So we looked at the agenda and Jami had a very good suggestion that we maybe move things around a little bit because some of our speakers aren't here yet. So we thought we'd start off with what was the last item, which is never last in our book with Andrew.
Who's first in our
Which is just 5 minutes, please, if possible, just to give a brief summary of.
I can go fast.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, Andrew.
Sure. So yesterday was actually the end of the temporary restraining order deadline that Judge Kleiman gave on the congestion pricing lawsuit. I have not heard any results. I don't believe the two parties have come together. So hopefully the TRO is still in effect because they have not settled on anything as of this moment. And we would have heard something if they had. So the federal government cannot withhold or threaten to withhold money from any New York projects as of this moment. So that's good news. After 17 weeks, the Rockaway service has been restored, the A and the S shuttle to Rockaway Park. They completely rebuilt the South Channel Bridge and the Hamels Y. I got a tour of it. It's amazing the job they did in 17 weeks, and they did it in time for beach season, so that's great. A little bad news, of the MTA's 224 active substations, which provide power, 81 are in poor or marginal condition. So those are definitely coming up in the capital program and are a must, and the MTA realizes they must be replaced. We can't have people walking through the tunnels like happened after the State Street substation failed and F train riders were led through dark tunnels to get out of the system. Broadway Junction is under progress to become ADA compliant. They're working on the A and C platform right now. They're doing some GOs around that. In one direction, A and C trains are not stopping at Broadway Junction while they make the station ADA accessible. That's going to be amazing because you have 3 levels there. You have the A and the C, the J and the Z, and the L. And that's going to be something, and eventually the IBX, the Interborough Express, will be there as well. So that's really important. There are major emergency communication upgrades taking place because those have failed in certain places, and we must have good emergency communications in case there's some sort of issue that must be dealt with. New countdown clocks are available on the B division. That's the lettered lines. If you've seen them, they're much more accurate. They're much more readable. And the screens on both the A division and the B division are really accurate now. But the countdown clocks on the A division, the numbered lines, are yet to be upgraded, and they are happening this year because it's amazing on the B division how easy they are and how accurate they are. You've probably heard Andy Byford is coming back to lead the redevelopment of Penn Station. I had a nice talk with him, and he has some good ideas. So he is very excited to be back in New York. He loved New York and didn't really want to leave, but he's back, not in any small part because he was in charge of Amtrak's high-speed rail division, and he was working on a Dallas-Houston high-speed rail link, and the state decided they're not going to pay for that, so that killed that project. Overnight 3 service has been extended from Times Square down to Penn Station 34th Street, thanks to some electrical work. The overnight 3s used to end at Times Square. For those that weren't aware of that, it's now going 1 station further south, so that's great. And 3 Peregrine Falcon chicks were hatched on the Brooklyn Tower of the Verrazano Bridge, and they are in great health and very happy, and that's exciting, really exciting news. I will say one other thing, which is I was at a rail conference, virtual one, where several US cities are talking about the fiscal cliff. New York realizes that their transportation system is the economic engine that moves the city, which is the economic engine that moves the state. Unfortunately, Pennsylvania, Illinois, and California don't realize these things yet. SEPTA is in dire straits. If the state doesn't approve money, they will lose 5 commuter rail lines, several trolley lines, and there will be no subway service on SEPTA after 9 p.m. That will kill Philadelphia. You just can't have that. And Chicago on the CTA and Metro is looking at similar massive fare hikes and massive service cuts. New York realized they have to do the right thing. Our state budget, which I could go into, but I don't want to delay this, but there's so much in that budget that's great. Everything the MTA needed is in that budget, $68 billion. So great thanks to Governor Hochul and the state legislature for realizing how important this system is to the economy.
Thank you, Andrew.
You're welcome.
I saw Drop Dead City over the weekend. I don't know if any of you guys have seen the documentary, but it's great. And there's a whole piece on the transportation system. It's about the fiscal crisis in the 70s. And it's a very well done documentary and about the
I
financial
gotta see
bailout and city, state, and local government. But there's a whole section on transit and the MTA. Thank you.
What's it?
It's on in theaters.
Oh.
It's at what used to be.
School.
It's what used to be Lincoln Plaza Cinemas. So it's on the west side. So it's a big, a small little theater on 67th Street.
We could have made it a transportation.
Yeah, field trip. We can make it a summer field trip for you. I'm sure it's probably online somewhere.
It's not streaming yet.
But it's not.
What warmed my heart, Andrew, while you were doing your presentation was that 2 of our Rita and is your husband also named Andrew?
Yeah.
They're nodding vigorously as you're giving your.
Yeah, that's very nice.
Vigorously nodding,
Thank you.
especially about the budget. So that,
Yeah, that's
That
really
one-
amazing. Good news.
Great, thank you.
any questions for Andrew? I have one question if we have time. So how old are the countdown clocks? If we knew more or less, we could guess.
Some of them are 25 years old or older. The ones on the IRT, the A division, you can see on the screens, they have very digital look to them, whereas the
Yeah.
new ones are easy to read from a distance.
Right.
There's only 2, one on top of the other, easy to read and wonderful and very accurate
That's
now.
why I asked, because some have that more sort of.
I asked the
old
question
school.
at the last board meeting, when is the A division getting these new countdown clocks? And Q, who was in, Quamela Arroyo, who's in charge
Yeah.
of this particular project, thanked me afterwards. He said, I've been wondering when they're getting to the A division. I've been working on that for some time. So it's in the works for sure.
Surprised they're so old.
But the screens are great. They're very accurate and people are always looking at the maps. We are moving towards a real-time map. That's the only map that makes any
You
sense.
mentioned that in a
Whether
previous
it's,
meeting.
whether it's daytime, rush hour, nighttime,
Mhm.
you want to know what's running right when you're looking at the
Right,
map.
right. Terrific.
Um,
Thank you.
One
Has
other-
the- Sorry, has the MTA been able to issue bonds based upon the revenue from congestion pricing, giving cloud over congestion pricing?
Some,
So
not
a
as much.
fraction of the.
Yes, it's working. Let's put it that way. They can get the bonds that they were hoping to get with this guaranteed money.
Okay, good.
Just a quick thing, since we're headed into the summer, we won't be meeting in July or August. We were talking about hot cars earlier. How do we report a hot car?
There's a number of that, a phone number that you can see in the cars. Now, if you see a problem with your car, there's a number you can call, or you can just send it to me and I'll report it. I have a direct line to the senior VP of Subways and he's
So those of
great.
you who are zooming in, talk to Andrew.
Just make note of the car number and the line you're on.
All right, thank you.
Well, I had a preview of the treat we're in for now, last night. Because I saw Carey talk last night about the district needs. So I get to see it again. But many of you have been through this before. It's changed a bit, but it's a little bit different. So we're gonna talk a little bit about it now, just to get our juices flowing about our needs in transportation. So take it away.
Thank you, and I apologize for anybody who has already heard the spiel, and I'm
No,
sure everybody
no
in one way or
apologies
another, we've all been through this process, but budget and strategy is currently working. We work over the summer to revise the district needs statement and to put together the specific budget requests that we submit to aid agencies. And so there are three things that we're going to be asking for help with in particular. This week, I'm going to be sending our chairs the excerpts of the district needs statement that touch upon what our committee does and asking for help in revising those sections in particular. Also going to be circulating around all of last year's budget requests that we had submitted to the agencies, just to take a fresh look at, see if there's anything that can be updated with regards to those, if they're still relevant. And the final thing that we need to do is think of, are there new things that we want to ask the agencies for, specific budget requests, either related to the expense or the capital budget. And this is really a good opportunity for us to put the issues that we talk about all year before the agencies. By the charter, they're required to consider our requests, give us a specific response, engage in consultation. So we already do that in a number of ways, but for anything that actually has a funding dimension, it's a great opportunity for us to go back, put pen to paper and say, this is what we'd like you to do in the district. So I'll be sending that around, and that's what we're going to be working on. So if anybody has particular thoughts, or if there have been issues at the back of mind, then absolutely mention it to the co-chairs, and it can all be funneled to our committee, and we'll be doing that work over the summer and into the fall.
And I would just note that we did link to, and you're gonna send that around again, but we did link to the committee page where we have all of the history for this committee. And we no longer vote on priorities. So it's really just a dialogue
That's
about
good.
what each of you thinks our priority should be. And then we'll share that with Carey and Roberta and Miriam, and they will move forward with a very big project. We're very thankful to you for that. Are there any questions for Carey while he's, well, I mean, not while he's here, because he's on this committee, so we don't have that issue tonight.
If I could, just to, the way we disseminate that things should come to you. We thought about pulling together a document in Drive and having committee members go in and add their feedback. Is that recommended?
So the office is at, well, it depends on whether it's an existing request or a new request. So I'm going to share at first just with the co-chairs, and we can then talk about what works best, the existing budget requests that we've already submitted, which are in spreadsheet form. For new requests, the office is in the process of putting together a portal where we can submit things in particular, which anybody will be able to access. And the reason for that is that DCP has specific data points that they're looking for with any new budget request. So instead of just doing it as sort of an open spreadsheet that everybody can edit, if there's an idea, we want to make sure that we're capturing the full range of relevant data points, as opposed to just having budget and strategy try to parse out exactly what something refers to or means. Or
Okay, I think we're just trying to think about, as we head into the end of June, trying to make sure that everyone has had a chance to contribute, and then we take that to you. Is that,
I have a question.
yeah,
So our
Yeah.
deadline as a committee.
yeah, is
For
the end of
for
is the
gathering
26th.
our thoughts is the end of this.
Yeah,
month.
so we will have a document that we will,
I can think of three things that I would love the MTA to do for us, but it's a state agency and we're a city thing. So do you still want those, or
I think it's helpful to put in.
we can send it to our electeds and they can do something about it perhaps?
Yes, I think it's worthwhile for us to mention, and if there's any response from the agencies, it's sometimes helpful to move the dialogue. On timing, we're aiming for end of the month on certain points for budget requests, though we have a little bit more time. So if people are thinking over the summer or have additional ideas, we can certainly consider those. It isn't going to be a hard stop at the end of the month comes and the dialogue.
okay, so what is at the end of the month? Like,
So the end of the month
district
is,
needs?
that's going to be the district needs
Okay.
and
That's what
for
we want,
existing
just to make sure.
things,
Okay.
that's.
Okay, got it, thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say since we have 9 new members on our board and we have people from the public and obviously a lot of tenured members of this board, the district needs statement is one of the most consequential things that we do.
Yes.
It is something that we're mandated to do. So when people say, what do community boards do? This is one of the most fundamental things. This is the voice of the board as to what our priorities are for the entire district. And so it's super important and it's a requirement. I think at some point, maybe we'll go into more detail of what an expense is versus a capital expense, the life expectancy of a particular, item and, the amount. But, yeah, super important, and that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Anyone else on this issue? Anybody from the public? All right. Thank you so much, Carey, for the presentation and for the work.
Thank you.
Maybe, just so we know who all is here, if people wanted to just briefly introduce themselves. I know we've got some people, I think, on Zoom, which Jessie we'll hear about, but the people who are here tonight, I know we have 70 seconds. Would you want to start, Rita?
I'm Rita, and I'm with the West 72nd Block Association. I'm the president.
Andrew again, I'm with the Broadway Mall Association.
Carey Kelly with the West 69th Street Block Association.
Howard Shapiro, I live in the neighborhood.
Are you with Morgan Williams? No, you're not. You live in the neighborhood.
Completely independent.
Okay, somebody had said they
Different
were gonna talk to a different, right? Okay.
Elise Kwan with Councilmember Blue's office.
And I'm John Harold, I'm the Riverside Park Administrator.
Great to see you.
Excellent.
And I'm Laura Sachs on West 72nd Street. Here to have a presentation I'm excited about.
All right.
Should we go to-
Just so you know, Jessie got the number to report something wrong with your subway car. So it's
Let's put it up on the.
Yes, go ahead.
Let's tweet it out.
682-4636.
Can you say it
Yeah,
again?
repeat
Thank you, Jessie.
That number again is?
212-682-4636. And you can report a problem with a specific subway car.
Hashtag report a problem with your subway car.
Yeah. Hot car.
At MTA.
Yeah.
What's it giving you home?
I can also add it to the transportation tab on our website.
Brilliant, that's brilliant, yes, okay, all right,
All
DOT.
right, so do we have Colleen on the line?
Hey everyone, it's Colleen Chattergoon from DOT. How are you?
Great.
Colleen?
Over to
Hi.
you.
So I just want to let you know, I have one update that I'd like to share with you, and I wanted to find out if the community board is planning to hold a meeting in July. And I know some CBs don't meet in July. The reason why I'm asking is because we want to come to the community board on 72nd. And we also want to have that walkthrough with a few members of the community board and with Streetopia. I'm aiming to schedule that walkthrough early next week. And I checked with Max, and Max mentioned, and I was supposed to get back to Max in terms of confirming if the board can let us know if they would hold a special meeting. Is that something that you would consider?
I think just solely to discuss 72nd Street, right? And the
Yes,
proposed crosstown.
yes. Bike lane,
Right?
correct.
I mean, I think we should open up to the committee to.
Well, I
How do
think
you guys
we
feel?
consider it, we have
Yeah.
to see what everyone's schedule would be.
Mhm.
But certainly, we would
Would-
never shut down an opportunity to meet with DOT.
Would be requesting a resolution to that effect, or just a presentation?
So we would also be requesting a resolution as well. But prior to that, of course, we will have the pre-meeting with the community board and with members of the CB and elected officials as well. But we will be requesting a resolution from the board.
But Colleen, you're asking, let me understand, you're asking for the walkthrough potentially in July and then the resolution thereafter?
No. I'm asking for the walkthrough. I'm planning to schedule the walkthrough next week. And
I
then we
see.
want to come in July. But before we come to the community board, we will have a pre-meeting with members of the CB7 as well as elected officials and other stakeholders.
Got
And
it.
then we will come in July to present.
Understood. Ken?
Yeah.
Colleen, how would this differ from the resolution we passed overwhelmingly 4 or 5 years ago?
Oh, it wouldn't differ. It's just, it would just re-up your support, but it wouldn't be different, Ken.
You need us to re-up it as opposed to.
It's always good because the resolution was quite a few years ago. Yeah.
It's changed in the neighborhood, but not, most likely not our.
So if the
So-
board can consider that and let me know, let Max know, that would be great, and we can schedule that.
Okay, I think we'll have to get back to you on that.
Yes,
Or-
that's fine.
Yeah. Okay, next on your list, Colleen, go right down on the things that you're,
We're making progress on the bike corral on Amsterdam between 70th and 71st. So I will have a final response to the board by next week, but it looks good. Just to let you know.
and could you just elucidate for those who might be new to this, what the latest is?
So DOT was approached to look at bike corrals on Amsterdam between 70th and 71st because of a lot of the deliveristas, they have their bikes in, the bike racks on the sidewalk. And that area, even though the sidewalk is pretty wide, the area is still cluttered with a row of bikes, and it doesn't look sightly, and it's not safe as well. So what we're looking to do is install a few sleds that the deliveristas can use, as well as removing the existing bike racks that are in the sidewalk. It will help to free up a lot of the spaces and make the area look more pedestrian friendly and provide more space for pedestrians as well.
Is there a time frame, dare I ask?
Sure, yes, I will get back to the board. I will let you know by next week. We are reviewing the design. So it's a design that we had initially proposed in the beginning, but we're just confirming with our parking division because, as you know, there's going to be quite a few parking losses there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any updates on, I guess, what we've talked about on our things from committee members, DOT action? I know, Howard, you.
Yeah, I have this list, so maybe I could go through it quickly.
Sure.
Central Park West loading zones, we did that in October of 2018. Anything on that?
Howard, you don't plan to go through your entire list
Are
of
you
resolutions?
looking for more loading zones, Howard? We're more than happy to scout some locations if you have in mind.
Well, we gave you a list of specific locations.
Okay, so I think you've sent us the list, and
I never sent you the list of locations.
yes, you have.
Oh, the list of the resolutions, yes.
I think I think if there are a few on this that are super high priority now, maybe mention them to Colleen, and then we're going
Well, they
to,
were adopted by the full board, so I assume they were high priority.
everything is a high priority, but tonight, for the purposes of this meeting, we stick to Colleen addressing priorities of this board that we've talked about recently, and anything that you feel is important.
But what is
The additional
more
things.
higher priority than having some follow-up on the resolutions we spend so
Because
much time
Howard-
adopting?
Howard, how many items are on
Yes.
this list?
Oh, 8.
There are 8, and several of them are actually being addressed by Colleen right now, so we'd ask you to please focus on the ones that you
Okay.
really think have not been acted on at all.
Okay.
Loading zones we're talking about tonight, so let's leave
Okay,
that.
let's see, we had the improved safety at the 10 most dangerous intersections, that was from 2019.
Well, we're working on intersections, as you know.
Yes,
Okay,
Please.
daylighting,
We've done daylighting recently.
no, we asked for daylighting, anything that was within 2 blocks of a school, and there were a few criteria there. So I was wondering what the status of that was.
Yeah, so Howard, with that one, we did respond to the community board with a letter. Daylighting, we are going to look at daylighting intersections when we come to present our SIPs, which are safety improvement projects. Not every corner is going to be feasible to daylight. We're looking at it in that respect. So we did send a letter, we did respond to the community board in terms of how we will be looking at daylighting district-wide.
Okay, but
Okay,
that's not what we
hold
called
on,
for in the resolution.
Hold on here. This feels like you're hijacking the meeting. I'm sorry, just hold
It's on the agenda.
hold on. No, this is not on the agenda.
Updates on outstanding matters.
Just 10-minute discussion.
Just hold on one second. Let me speak freely and then you can speak. Howard, everybody forgive me. Howard emailed me this this list. We had an exchange about this list. And I wrote back and said, give us an yesterday, not a week ago, not 10 days ago, not 2 weeks ago. And I said, Howard, give us an opportunity to review this list and let's sit down and talk about ways to walk through this list with DOT. I don't think it's fair at this time, with no one else in this room having had an opportunity to go back through this list, including Colleen, to now run through these things without Colleen having had an opportunity to see this list. I don't think that's fair. That's my opinion as a co-chair. I don't know what Elizabeth
I
thinks.
echo that, and also.
I don't know what anybody else in the room thinks.
And we'd just like to add that.
Plus, we have a very full agenda.
We have a full agenda, and we also do reserve this time. It was 10 minutes for things that have come before this committee meaning this group of us, where we have had action items for Colleen to address.
And
And that
just-
was the intent for tonight's meeting.
And I
Just
have
so you-
one.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Ann.
Well, Colleen, you may recall, we gave you a list of 8 locations where transit signal prioritization makes sense for the bus system we have, and none of them have seen the light of day yet.
I would
And
be
again-
more than,
Yeah,
Colleen,
and
hold on a
Andrew, yeah, let me
Colleen,
answer
hold
Andrew with, yeah.
hold on. I'm more than happy to have Colleen come back here and address every single one of your points on this sheet. But she has not been given this sheet to, and look.
No, she's been given what I've talked about, not Howard's list. I'm not on Howard's list.
Okay, you're not on Howard's list. Okay, Colleen, just give me
Watch out.
1 sec, just give me 1 sec. We'll give Colleen an opportunity to address Andrew. Are you comfortable, Howard, allowing us to have a separate meeting to walk through your items?
Yeah, I just, it goes to what we're doing here. If we just spend all this time discussing resolutions, vetting them, carefully putting them together and voting on them here and then sending them to the full board and then nothing happens. It's very demoralizing to volunteer on a community board, but we don't follow up on them. So you said she hasn't seen this. The DOT has this as final resolutions. It's not news. This is old news. So I
It's
think.
new news to me because I've only been
Well,
co-chair
right,
since
right,
March.
right. But
So
I
I'm
was-
asking
I was
you,
co-chair,
as
yes.
I know.
Yeah.
And I asked you in an email to give me an opportunity to talk with you and Ken
That's
and
fair.
Colleen and Elizabeth, all of us,
Yes.
about how we'll move forward together.
Okay.
So please give me that opportunity
Okay.
with Elizabeth and you and Ken and anyone else who wants to participate in that conversation.
Sounds good. So-
All right, so now let's have Andrew's.
But I just
question.
want to make sure, so I don't know if this is comprehensive, I kept this list during my 6 years as co-chair, so.
So
I would
now you
like
have a
colleagues-
chance, now you have a chance, we have a chance to make it comprehensive.
Absolutely, we have a chance to add some more to the list,
Right,
actually.
and
Good.
we have read through your list.
Mhm.
I've been on the transportation committee for a long time.
Mhm.
I've been chairing it only shortly longer than Jamie, a few months longer than Jamie has. We take all of those considerations to heart. We are doing the best we can. We are building a very strong relationship with DOT where we would like to continue to have her be as responsive as she has been. Colleen, thank you
She's been
again
very
for coming
responsive.
tonight. We do a weekly meeting with her, either a phone call or an in-person meeting, so that we can hopefully advance your concerns.
Yes,
So with that in mind, let's
Andrew.
go to Andrew.
Thank you,
Colleen,
Colleen.
you have my list, right, of 8 possible locations?
I do have your list, Andrew, and in the past, what I mentioned to you was that when we have these bus priority projects with MTA, we will look along those corridors to see if we can implement the signal timing changes. But at the moment, we're not going to move forward with that.
Okay, there's one location you may recall at 81st in Amsterdam where the bus has to wait for no reason because it's either direction, up east or west of Amsterdam. Both, you can't go cross Amsterdam on 81st Street. So the bus can simply turn if it has a red light. It would speed up the M79 significantly.
Well, we are working very closely with the MTA to speed up bus servicing. So that is something we can have a discussion with them, okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Should we bring up other ones or?
I mean, this is,
This is her. Go
again,
ahead. Yes, that is the point.
I was wondering about the news racks, the enforcement.
Yes, the news rack.
Yes.
When you had said you were checking with the unit in charge.
Absolutely, and I actually did, and that request, as I remember, you had submitted a FOIL request, and it's actually being worked on by our litigation division, so you should be hearing something soon.
First of all, I hope that whatever meeting you have with Colleen is gonna be public.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, of course, yes, we can talk more about that.
Yeah.
Are you talking about our weekly meetings?
Whatever, whatever gets discussed, and we find out what DOT's response is to these items, some of which have been outstanding for 7 years. It should be on the public record, what DOT's response is, and what they're doing about it, and when they're planning to do something about it, if they are, and, and if they're not planning on doing anything, why not? That should be all public.
Agree, but let's just be clear about what has transpired here. I received an email, we received an email from, well, I only keep saying I because I responded. We
Right.
received an email from Howard, with whom I've always had an excellent working relationship. So I responded to Howard.
Why don't you say that in the past tense?
With whom I have an excellent working relationship. And so I thought we would use this as an opportunity to figure out a way forward in not only perhaps further investigating what other matters perhaps have not been resolved, but also Elizabeth and I have been trying to work with Colleen, and we've been developing an excellent working relationship with DOT in person. We go down there, we go to DOT, we sit down, we have meetings. We can have these meetings in public here, but also conversations are, Howard and I talk on the phone sometimes. Oh my goodness, can you believe that? We actually speak on the phone. We don't get everybody on the phone. We have a one-on-one. That sometimes is how business is done. It's okay. It's okay. Nothing, it's all transparent, but sometimes it's just more efficient to have a one-on-one. You are always welcome to join every single conversation.
It's not just me, it's the public.
Everyone is
But
welcome.
there's nothing being done behind closed doors. We
Trying
have
to
a
make
role
it
as co-chairs
efficient.
to collect information and talk to the city agencies on your behalves and on the public's behalf, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, Ken, it's mostly about the resolutions where we are with them, just so you know, and follow up with request. And then I would report at the transportation meeting, so nothing is being hidden.
I just want to make sure nothing falls through the cracks. These were resolutions we spent a lot of time and
Yes,
effort on.
we agree.
And so something should, even if we get told, can't do it, no, not in our wheelhouse, whatever.
And like I said to you in email, great work doing this.
Yeah.
making this list.
And
Let's make the most-
Howard, just to address your concern with the loading zone, I know that's a big one for you. We have installed some loading zones in the area. And I do have that list. I mean, not all locations are going to be warranted for our loading zones, but we have been working on establishing loading zones in the CB7 district.
I'm fully aware of that. It's just that it's not enough. And we also called specifically for loading zones on Weston Avenue and Central Park West. And I know you put in a good number on Weston Avenue, but on Central Park West, there's really almost nothing.
And
Okay.
what I would
Check.
suggest, and I think Jamie mentioned it, if you have priority locations that you want us to look at from that list, please do, let us know, okay?
That's something we should do.
Yes,
And
yes.
Colleen,
Yeah.
I know you're still around, but
Yeah.
the curb access item will address part of this as well. So
Definitely.
Colleen, do you have it? Oh, go ahead, Ken.
it's related to residential, sorry.
So I was wondering, I think you said something last month about this, or what's going on with the proposed resolution on left turns.
Yes,
Yes.
Colleen, how about left turns?
So left turns, I mentioned that we will have a site visit with our signals division, which is something I'm organizing, Ken, and you will be included in that. Jamie and Elizabeth will keep you posted on that one, okay? We'll have the site visit before the summer, okay?
All right, so a couple of site visits that we,
A couple,
a
yeah.
couple of site visits coming up.
It's on the
7th.
list. It's on the list of items that we discussed.
So get your walking shoes on, everyone, for this
Mhm.
summer.
Any other questions for
I think
Colleen?
any community questions for
For
our
Colleen's very
transportation?
exciting DOT update.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
Bye,
Colleen.
guys.
Thanks.
So next up, I think we have DOT
Yeah, I saw him.
Bridges Division. Yes.
Hi,
I think
everyone.
that's Francesca.
Thank you for inviting me. I just have a question or a favor to ask. The speaker for today, Tom Sirigione, if he could be elevated to a panelist so he could speak as well. and I can share my screen. Thank you. And also the email there is for the Rotunda project. I'm the new community liaison. So if there's any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to email me there. That's the quickest way to access my information. Thank you.
Great. All right, over to you guys.
Is he there?
I am. Hello, everybody. How you doing?
Hello.
So I'm Tom Sorencion. I'm the resident engineer on the West 79th Street Rotunda project. Thanks for having us so that we can give you guys an update on what our project is. I have to say, I found the meeting very interesting. You guys are my community board. I live on the Upper West Side. Been here for a long time, actually. Me, my wife, and my son. And it's good to hear some of what's happening in the neighborhood. But about the Rotunda. So this is the project is the rehabilitation of the West 79th Street Bridge over Amtrak and the West 79th Street Rotunda complex. And this is our update as of June this month, 2025. Go ahead. Go ahead. Next slide, Francisco. Thanks. So we're just going to, we'll give a brief introduction of the project, an update on the progress of the work, specifically a little bit more in detail about the Guastavino arch, Guastavino ceiling that's being constructed, and a little bit more of what's in store for 2025. So I'm sure most of you are aware of the West 79th Street Rotunda. It's an intermodal hub, right? This is where we have the ramps, the exit ramp and entrance ramp to the southbound Henry Hudson Parkway, as well as the ramps that go down from the street level to the garage. And then, of course, the traffic circle, you know, that for West 79th Street, it's also for pedestrians that access from Riverside to the waterfront. So it serves all of those purposes. It's owned and operated by Parks. It houses maintenance and operation space, concessionaire, which is the restaurant on the plaza, and the boat base and parking in the garage. As I said, it accommodates the vehicles, pedestrians, and bicycles. You guys have probably seen this before, but just a refresher, this is actually what the structure of the rotunda is. It's kind of a layer cake, so to speak. The top portion being the traffic circle is kind of large. The plaza is a bit smaller. And then there's the garage, which is a bit larger still. So that it is comprised of these three levels. Most people don't know that. So many people that I talk to are not aware that there's a garage level, but that's what it is. It's three levels, and these are those levels. So where we are right now is the stage one traffic pattern. That's the configuration that everybody's been familiar with for a while now. If you follow the green arrow from the southbound Henry Hudson Parkway, you'll see you make the hard left turn on the circle, and then you continue traveling eastbound on West 79th Street. That's where we are right now. And the pedestrians, if you follow the yellow dotted line that's shown here, they travel across the north side of Rotunda to the waterfront. So that, and for the buses, there's a temporary detour for the buses, and the layover area has been relocated while we do this work on the project. Next slide. So some progress in stage one. Stage one was by far our largest roadway stage on the rotunda. You can see the photo on the left is showing the deck was removed, the superstructure steel was removed, it was replaced. That photo right there is showing rebar installation, getting ready for placement. The photo on the left shows a bit of the new deck that was placed as we're getting ready to open that stage to traffic. This is a photo of the bridge over Amtrak. The structures in this project are actually two. There's two. There's the West 79th Street Bridge over Amtrak and the Rotunda. The Rotunda is by far the largest part of the project. The West 79th Street Bridge over Amtrak is a relatively small bridge that is just below the bridge carrying the Henry Hudson Parkway over 79th Street. So what's below this structure here, this bridge, is the Amtrak viaduct. And as you can see, we have the rebar on one side. That's prep for placement, and then we're getting closer to the finished product with the concrete placed on the right. We also have work in the garage. Part of this project is building out additional office and concession space. And when you're looking at the photo on the right, that's new steel that's been installed. That's going to support a slab that is going to increase that space. Those spaces are going to be built on top of that structure. It's using more efficiently the space that is already in the rotunda, particularly in the garage. The photo on the left, we have a lot of utility work, a lot. And that is all in the garage. It's actually a lot more messy right now than what you see in the photo, but that is ongoing. The plaza, which so many people are interested in particular, is the plaza, and it's a very interesting bit of work. So the Guastavino vaults were deconstructed. That was part of the project. So what you are looking at on the photo of the left is the structure on the plaza after the vaults were removed. What was above the vaults was steel framing, which has also been removed, which supported the deck. That area hadn't been seen in many, many years. I believe almost 100. So it was a fairly inaccessible space that now, that steel has since been replaced, and you will see that the deck has been the deck has been replaced, and the Guastavino arches are being reconstructed, which is the photo on the right. You can see the workers there. They are reconstructing one of the arches. That's a recent photo of these vaulted arches, which is really quite amazing construction that we are doing here. Reconstructing Guastavino vaults on the scale that we are doing has not been done in many decades. So there's a lot of attention being paid to it. It's a very interesting part of the project.
Okay.
So, well, before we move into this, just so make it quick, is that we were not going to allow the subcontractor actually to demolish the vaults until they showed us that they could in fact reconstruct the vaults properly. So this is just a quick, they did a full scale mock-up, exact geometry of one of the vaults, and this is just a quick time-lapse video of it. Kind of gives you an idea of what goes into constructing these. The formwork is very in depth, and the workers have proven to be very skilled. Done a great job so far. As you can see, that's the structural tile portion. That's what actually supports the arch. What you see on the bottom is the concrete tiles. They've already been laid down. And there it is. That's finished. That's actually right out here in the park, in one of our staging areas right off of Riverside.
They work fast.
They do. So, new traffic pattern you guys are going to see. That is going to happen this Thursday night. It was supposed to happen last on the 6th originally. However, the work in preparation to get to move into this stage was weather dependent. And as you could see, we have to have a period of without rain for a while. The weather was difficult. So it's got pushed to Thursday night. Thursday night, this stage will be put into place. The only change that that the public will see for now is the green arrow. You will exit southbound Henry Hudson Parkway. You will go around the traffic circle rather than making the hard left. Continue eastward on West 79th Street. That is the only change for now. The pedestrian access still stays the same on the north side of the structure. And that leads up to our more significant closure, which is going to happen on the night of June 26th. On Friday the 27th, when you come in, drive in, this pattern will already be in place. So what this does now is the southbound exit ramp to West 79th Street to the traffic circle is closed. There will be no traffic eastbound or westbound on West 79th Street immediately west of those on and off ramps right near Riverside. The pedestrian access is still going to remain the same, but there will be no vehicular access through the site at that time. That stage lasts for 2 months. By contract, it had to be during the period where the DOE schools are out in the summer, which makes this stage absolutely critical for us to get into, because if we don't get into it, it slips another year into next summer. So this is going to happen. This will be in place this coming Friday. You will notice there was some discussion. This has been intensely coordinated with many different people, but NYPD particularly. The stars on the map, the screenshot here, are the locations where the TEA agents will be. That will be 7 days a week, 2 shifts, morning and evening, to cover the morning and evening rush. The detour for this is also going to be in place. So if southbound traffic was going to exit at 79th Street and utilize the area, what they're going to instead do is take the 95th Street exit, which is why we have the TEA station there. They're going to take the 95th Street exit and then travel southbound on West End or Broadway.
Nice. Wow.
And then what will happen is once we get through that 60-day window and that stage 3 work, which let me tell you is a very large amount of work. We will be working a lot of hours to get that done. Then we will return to the stage 2 roadway configuration at the end of August, and it will stay here till approximately the end of the year, which is what we had seen before. It'll be the same where traffic exits, goes around the traffic circle and continues eastbound on West 79th Street. And that concludes the presentation. Anybody got any questions?
It's a great presentation. Those turtles are in the fountain.
Is there a history? Do you want to briefly describe the history of the turtle for those who may not know?
Sure.
We know here on the table.
They're a metaphor for the speed of.
So the turtle.
I thought you were going to say the speed of these meetings. Please go ahead.
Sure. So the turtle, when the fountain was, when the structure was originally constructed in the 1930s, that fountain was functional and it had 12 bronze turtles on it, along with a bunch of domes. From underneath of the turtles came some of the fountain streams. Those turtles were kind of significant. They've actually become kind of a de facto symbol of the project. So what happened was those turtles, the fountain was, was decommissioned, I guess, so to speak. And as most of you might remember, the boat basin had the stage built over top of it where, the tables were. The turtles were all lost except for one single turtle, which was saved. And that turtle was at the Museum of the City of New York. It still is there. In order to replicate that turtle, We borrowed it from the City Museum of New York. It was scanned in a 3D scan, and it was remade, replicated at a foundry out in California. We have them here, and they will be just like that turtle, including minor imperfections and everything. Looks just like it. Yep. Came out great.
Fond memories as a little boy, putting my feet in that fountain with those turtles.
Yep.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. I mentioned it before. That's so great.
Oh,
That's nice.
you should have one.
They will look the same.
Oh, that's lovely.
I have a real one.
Any questions?
A real turtle.
Mhm.
I think we have somebody from the, do you want to start with the community, right?
Yes.
I guess, I think we have somebody from the community, Carl.
Yeah, hey, everybody, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna keep my camera off because I'm in the kitchen cooking
If you
dinner.
could introduce yourself.
Oh, yeah, so hi, this is Carl Mahaney. I direct Streetopia Upper West Side. We're a neighborhood, local Upper West Side livable streets advocacy organization. Colleen, thank you for the mention earlier of the 72nd Street walkthrough. I look forward to hearing dates on that. That'll be exciting. I have sort of three quick questions on this. The first is about cyclist access on the Rotunda. I know since the beginning of the project, when it was announced in like 2018, something like that, advocates for safe cycling were a bit concerned about the configuration because we're basically sending cyclists through a freeway exit and entrance ramp to access what is famously the busiest car-free greenway in America. And that just seems like a recipe for all sorts of problems. So I guess I'm wondering if there have been any modifications to the design to create a physical separation between cars and buses in particular on the traffic circle and the space for cyclists. And if there is any sort of physical cue planned for to slow drivers, stop drivers when they come off the Henry Hudson Parkway at freeway speeds and enter this traffic circle where, again, families, people who are going to the Greenway are every type of cyclist. So I guess I'm wondering what accommodations there are there. Should I hold my other two questions or say them now and wait for responses?
That's fine.
Okay.
As far as the cyclist access, I'll defer to Colleen on that. Colleen, do you want to add anything for that?
Hey, Carl. So when we presented this, we went through the whole discussion with a lot of the advocates who attended the meeting about the cyclist advocates and I mean advocating for and who were concerned about access. And based on the design, there are constraints. There are constraints, and I know you sent a letter to our office about this, highlighting this. And with the space that we have, we cannot accommodate a protected bike lane in that area there that you mentioned. We work very closely with Tom and his team to look at signage as well as creating a more safer route for cyclists that that is accessible, that will help to alleviate some of the concerns that you have. And we do plan to respond to that letter that you sent us, just so you know.
I appreciate that. And maybe I can highlight from that letter just one question that I posed in that, which is, do you, DOT and Parks, the sort of team that was responsible for ensuring safe access to the Greenway, do you believe the current design of the 79th Street Rotunda traffic circle would be safe for a child to use while riding their own bicycle? And then I had a if so and several follow-up questions, and an if not, several follow-up questions. But I think that's an important question that we all should answer. And if the answer is no, then we need to decide where it is safe for children and those that are a little more vulnerable and a little less confident to be able to ride and to leave our street grid and access the Greenway, which is which is where a lot of kids learn to ride and where we want everybody to feel comfortable. So thank you for that. I'll look forward to that follow-up. Two other quick questions. When you're closing the the traffic circle completely for those 2 months, will DOT be collecting any data on traffic patterns? Now, I know school is out, so it's maybe not, completely applicable to all parts of the year. But it's such a major disruption to the normal traffic flow, and it could offer some insights into traffic patterns, traffic evaporation versus induced demand, that kind of thing. Does DOT have any plans to collect data on traffic patterns and analyze that data during that 2-month period?
So I would have to check on that. I'm not really sure. Get back to you. The traffic was studied quite a bit, during design before before the project started. And I know things have changed since then, and with congestion pricing, I could check on that, and the agency will have to get back to you on it. That would be done off of, outside of my project, which is really all that I focus on is right here.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks. And if that comes through the community board, I would love to just know the answer to that question, because the data can, help us make informed decisions. And then one final question really quick. Thanks for your patience. And this is for John Harold, who I heard was in the room, if he's open to a question. I know the Greenway, has had for several years now that detour that takes you up and over the Rotunda before it was closed. I guess I'm wondering what the plans are when the Rotunda is open again. Will the Greenway, will that be the permanent configuration of the Greenway? One concern is that it is an active driveway to a garage, and I assume many vehicles be coming in and out of that garage daily, possibly at very busy times. So I'm just wondering what the thinking is there and what the plan is, if at this stage, for the sort of like final configuration of the Greenway once the Rotunda project is complete.
That plan, hi Carl, that plan is of the design of the Rotunda.
John, do you want to come up closer to the owl? Sorry to.
Sit right here.
Good evening. Hi, Carl.
Hey, John.
The plan for the traffic patterns and cycling on the ramps there is actually part of the Rotunda plan, and it hasn't changed.
So cyclists will still, the Greenway will still divert from the Esplanade, from the waterfront, go up and down the hills, and then over the Rotunda and back down.
Cyclists, yes.
Cyclists. And is there any concern, or has there been any thought given to the potential conflict with vehicles entering and exiting the garage, and how that'll be mitigated? Because they will use that access point.
But that's not new. It always was the case, and we've always taken that into account.
Right. Just as a cyclist, who rides with a child, often it is something that we experience as a discomfort and a little bit of a stress point in what is otherwise a car-free Greenway. So I was curious, you answered the question. Thank you for that. And I, encourage, we'll maybe monitor it as it opens back up and see, I don't know if more vehicles will be using that or less, what the volume of vehicle traffic will be into and out of the garage, if it'll stay basically the same as it was before, but just putting it on your radar as something to keep an eye on. Make sure that we're, keeping the comfort of cyclists in mind as well.
Carl, before we go.
Give me a second. Hold on.
Okay.
I see it.
You said somebody here.
We're back.
Your fault. Is there any,
Given the fact.
We have to speak to the owl.
Okay, come forward a little bit, or here.
Given the fact that the entrance to the highway will be Oh, okay.
It's right here.
Thank you.
Okay. Given the fact that the entrance to the highway will be closed for a couple of months, I want to just have the board think about, and maybe signage would be the best way to handle it. The 95th Street exit is going to be much more heavily trafficked.
Yes.
And if I can remind the board, there were 7 fatalities only a few short years ago. I act like a pig when I drive on there, and I take up the whole 2 lanes myself.
Don't do that.
I don't want anybody to pass me. It's just not safe. So maybe just some signage to say, with those arrows that say, you know, with the exclamation point, to have it, people slow down for that turn. And yeah, it's very, and the other thing is, that will be the last exit off the highway before congestion pricing. So maybe have a sign to warn drivers that they're going to have to pay that $9 fee. And
That's not necessarily true. If they stay on the highway and go to the battery tunnel, yes,
Okay, but I mean, I take the tunnels into Jersey.
yes, then you'll get hit with the fee.
I'm a driver and I do believe in congestion pricing. I think they should extend it 50 feet to allow cars to get on the bridge at Second Avenue. Because I think that's unfair. People from this neighborhood just want to leave. We don't want to enter.
Yeah, and I think they should have, I've said this to the board that reviewed this, there should be a direct route from the West Side Highway to the Lincoln Tunnel and to the Holland Tunnel, because you're just leaving, you're not really going.
Just passing through.
Exactly.
I believe in the subway system and transit. It gets me there so quickly.
It does, doesn't it?
And when it
Services
works,
at
it's
its highest.
beautiful. I love it.
You're talking to the right guy, because Andrew is an MTA board member.
Also coming out of the tunnel from New Jersey and just swinging around to the west side. which I
Absolutely.
Lives to Andrew about 100
Thank you
times.
for the note about signage. That's a
Yeah,
very,
because it's a dangerous turn to begin
very
with,
good.
and there's going to be increased traffic.
Even without the.
Last
increased traffic,
exit before
it's a good-
congestion zone, unless you're traveling to the
Well, that's already getting big for us.
battery tunnel.
Andrew,
Yeah,
is that the MTA will do that, right? Is that for who will be?
that's DOT, the
It's
West
DOT.
Side
Okay,
Highway.
so you guys, are these all things you can take back from this conversation? Is Colleen still with us? And
Here, I'm listening. I'm listening. Yep. Taking notes.
We can- Thank
She's there.
you.
She's there.
Mhm.
Committee now? Yeah.
Okay.
Patiently waiting.
Thank you.
I had a question for John. Sorry to make you, go outside again. And also a comment on what Carl raised initially. But, John, I'm just wondering, it seems that what's currently happening, which is where cyclists and pedestrians are sharing about, I don't know, 300 feet or something like that of the waterfront area, seems like a pretty good compromise. And it avoids a very steep.
Hello?
hill.
Yeah, what are you doing? I'm hosting the meeting.
Oh, Jessie.
Jessie?
It avoids a very steep hill that cyclists have to go up and then go down very fast. And I actually saw a woman get hit. Or I arrived right after she got hit. She had a broken collarbone because the cyclist just was going down. Unless you're braking, which most cyclists aren't going to do, and she just walked out and got hit. And so this seems like what's currently happening seems like a safer alternative and a kind of a good compromise. And then once you get past that area, the cyclists go up into the hills and the pedestrians have the promenade. So is there any thought to just continuing that?
There has not been, it's really not, part of the whole problem that started all this is that the Esplanade is very narrow there.
Yeah.
That's really how we got here. It's very narrow, it's very crowded, and to have people walking, and children, there are people too, and cyclists was a problem, and people got hurt.
But how's it working now?
It's inconvenient, but it works, but it's inconvenient and it's not ideal. Both of those lanes are very narrow.
But I don't know. As a cyclist who uses it quite a bit, I find it not terrible.
If the Esplanade were, I'll make up a number, 10 feet wider, I think something like that could be, but it isn't, so.
And then on the, what Tom presented, I just wanted to remind us that I think it was 2019, this board passed a resolution on the Rotunda project where we asked for protective, physical protection for cyclists and pedestrians in the traffic circle, and also warning signs for drivers, alerting them that they were about to enter a cyclist pedestrian space, flashing yellow signs. We also asked for rumble strips or something like that, physical treatment. Again, warning drivers that they were about to enter. They're no longer on a highway. They're in a pedestrian zone, cyclist zone. And as far as I know, I haven't heard anything about any of that. So is any of that contemplated?
This is, I guess, for DOT, or if not, something that you can
It's a DOT
maybe
question.
review.
It's a question for Colin.
Or Tom.
I'm sorry, did you say rumble strips along the Esplanade?
That was one of three things.
On the off ramp, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for the off ramp and also flashing warning signs.
I don't know
physical-
if we cover that area, if that's under a jurisdiction, I would have to find out.
It might be bridges.
Highway?
Or parks.
That's not park.
Yeah,
Also
I think
9A.
it's more likely park, not DOT.
Wait, what are you talking
9A
about?
is New York State Highway.
You're talking
Where-
about the traffic
exit
circle.
from
The ramp, where the ramp enters the traffic circle. I very much doubt that's part of Riverside.
Well, I think, I don't know jurisdiction wise in terms of location. If you send that to me, I can find out.
It was one of those notorious resolutions. This one was from
So we
6
can-
years.
It's not, I'm not even
It's not
on the
on our
list.
list.
Yeah, I come up that at least twice a week and you're zooming down a highway and then you just enter that circle. I think rumble, and that's why we had the resolution calling for some kind of rumble strip or something to get people to realize that the highway's over now and you're in a park. And I think it's absolutely essential to have cars just shooting off the highway into this area that's where there are pedestrians and cyclists that are in unprotected lane, just asking for major trouble. So I think rumble strips would probably be the best. Yeah, because you can ignore a sign, but you can't ignore rumble strips.
But there's a
So,
jurisdiction question.
To
is there not?
DOT, just a quick thing, if we send you the 2019 resolution for you to look at, would you be willing to make, or at least consider reviewing it and telling us sort of whether or not any of these updates could be made, and if not, letting us know and perhaps letting us know why?
Sure.
I think we know one way or another. And is that something that you could turn around to us? I mean, as at your leisure, but I know this is moving. The project is moving, but we'd like to just make sure you've seen these suggestions, because a lot of time was put into to this back 5 years ago. And I think it would be worthwhile,
Yeah,
hopefully. just
sure. I
reading
can share that with our bikes division and we'll definitely review it and get back to the board.
Okay, if you could just let us know once that goes off to them and when you expect to hear, that would be great. So,
Yes.
Thanks. Other,
I mean, I was just, you addressed it, but I was just going to add, I was on this committee and I do remember a very detailed conversation about the safety, and being that it is a mixing zone, the idea of when you're traveling at 50 miles an hour southbound on 9A, and I think this is a propensity that everybody has, you have to break that, forward momentum to slow down. And there's lots of different things that I've seen in the city and outside of the city that remind people to slow down when they're coming off of an off-ramp. Rumble sticks is one of them. I don't know if this is even within the possibility, but I've seen in certain zones in upstate New York where there's actually a speed camera that says this is your speed,
Yeah. it's
right?
very
To remind people that you are going too fast or you're at the right speed.
Have that.
But it does seem, if we can't compromise, and there is a mixing zone between pedestrians or bicycles, it's even more important to make sure vehicles are slowing down when they come off that highway. So I don't know where that ends, but I know 9A is a New York State highway.
Yeah.
And I know this is obviously, this whole project is so multifaceted, right? Between Amtrak, the federal government, the Department of Highways, the Public Design Commission, the landmarks, parks, it's so complicated. It's amazing, but it looks like it's coming
And
to
at some
fruition.
point, Metro North may be using that tunnel as well.
Could be.
Yeah.
Okay, so in terms of next steps for DOT, is there anything, I guess, anything more you want to add, or we can move on to the next item, but we appreciate you joining us tonight.
Yeah, I think that's it for now, right? And then
I have nothing
You'll
else.
keep us,
will you come back in the fall with an update?
yeah.
Sure.
Tom?
Yes, we can look at an update, probably more towards the end of the year is more appropriate. Yeah.
Okay,
Great.
okay. Terrific, thank you.
Thanks to DOT for this. Appreciate the update. I'm assuming it's okay for us we can put this all up on our website and just, it's probably already there, but if not, just to give the public an update. If they go to our website. Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, 2 more items, guys, I think.
Moving right along. Howard, Ken, who's presenting our loading?
And Sophia.
Sophia's online.
Yeah.
There she is.
Hey, Sophia.
I'm happy to do it. This all came out of a neighbor, my next door neighbor, who just recently died. So it's not a concern to her anymore, but she was over 90 years old. And there are no loading zones on Central Park West, at least not in the part where I live. And she always had to navigate double parked cars because there were always double parked cars there. Without exception, our building gets, I think the exact number is a gazillion packages a day delivered by someone, and it's really treacherous. So the idea was that if a building felt that it would make sense to devote one spot so that people in the building could have access to the curb, always have access to the curb to get to either get picked up or to get dropped off. That would be a great amenity for people who, like my since deceased neighbor, would have an easier time getting to and from the building. Yes, at the beginning, there was some confusion as to whether this is also a loading zone resolution. I'm sure if you had this spot, it would be used to occasionally to load and unload passages, but the main intent for this resolution was for people, so that people could have easy access to the curb, especially for people who are older or somehow frail or disabled. It would make it much easier for them. Again, it would just be one spot and would only be at the request of the building. We wouldn't be requesting these spots from the community board. We would just say when a building feels this is necessary for the people in the building to have this curb access, we would support having that access. And again, only for larger buildings. And we just came up with a number of about 50. And a Google search turned up there were about 400. It's a rough number, rough estimate, roughly 400 buildings on the entire Upper West Side, which have more than 50 apartments. So that was the idea behind the resolution.
And I noticed you framed it as curb access.
Curb
not
access.
loading zone.
Right. The intent is to have curb access for people like my neighbor. Does Sophia or Ken want to add anything? Because they're both helpful to me in coming up with this.
Not
I think Sophia had something to add.
No, I think that's great. You explained it really well. And I feel like generally it's always good to have curb access, and especially with the high need of these big residential buildings in terms of maintenance. I think throughout the day there's always a need. So yeah, great job.
I guess, can we maybe bring up the resolution?
Yeah.
Jami, I don't know if that's where we can.
I don't have it on here.
No, it's in Drive, but I don't know if you're.
So building
above 50 units get a no standing zone if they want.
Only if they want it.
And it says no standing.
Well, let me just read the therefore. This is the therefore clause. Therefore, be it resolved that Community Board 7 Manhattan asks the New York City Department of Transportation to allow any building with 50 residential units or more to allocate in its discretion at least one dedicated loading, unloading, and passenger pickup drop-off zone as close as possible to its entrance. Upon request from any such building, Community Board 7 calls upon the DOT to implement such a zone as soon as possible.
Howard, did you share, you did upload this, right?
Yeah. I think Ken.
I do. I sent it to you.
Can you share?
So why not 49 or 25 or?
Eco-friendly amendment. If you want 25, we can do 25. We just tried to pick a number where there was a significant, in the building of, with 50 people on the upper side, there's guaranteed to be a couple of senior citizens and possibly 1 or 2 disabled people.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I just didn't know if there was any methodology.
No, there was no, it's.
Yeah, why did you choose 50, Howard?
Because.
Just where?
We wanted it high enough so that it wouldn't be every small building, and low enough so that you didn't need dozens of people who were potentially old or frail. It's extremely likely, having lived on the Upper West Side for quite some time, in most buildings that have at least 50 people, there are a few old people, right, and a few, and possibly a couple of
I think that's the right number.
Yeah, yeah. There's a
I'm not so
question
sure
from the
about that.
community. Please,
Yeah.
do you mind speaking into the owl?
Oh, by the way, my name is Avi Shapiro.
Yes.
Okay. And the board does have a provision for this. In fact, my building came to the board about 2 years ago to ask for a loading zone and area, and it was defeated. Not by much, but I know it's a touchy subject.
Yeah.
There are fire hydrants near buildings. There are many other areas. Since I do drive, I do drop my wife off and I look for parking.
Right.
So I am very much a person who uses the benefits if there were access, but I was opposed to it.
Oh, interesting. Do you mind
Because-
sharing why?
Well, there's a fire hydrant nearby that still takes up part of our awning area. It's off to the side a little bit, but it does include the awning area. Some buildings are close to the corner. By having that access, it takes away from parking that's needed sometimes. If there is no parking available, then they have the access already. But I feel that the board has a case-by-case provision for handling this. And sometimes it's needed and sometimes it's not. So I think voting no at this time for that type just by requesting, that in effect takes away the board's authority to govern the parking situations and the loading zone situations here. It puts it in the hands of the supers, or the boards, the co-ops.
I mean, I don't
Thank
recall
you.
that we received that many of these requests where it's become like a burden for the board. I mean, I've been on for years, but I don't recall it, but it's been an issue where we're getting. But I mean, yeah, there are that many where we're like, okay, we're trying to just find a way to make this easier, so we don't have to deal with.
Over the years, there've been quite a few requests from various buildings who
But
don't.
too much that we want to manage, that made a good point. Is that- I guess, is it managed? Was there
I'll tell you why it matters. It's because buildings should know that there's this ability, they have this ability. That if they feel they are a good number of older people or frail people in the building, they should know that there's a possibility to have the community board support their need or desire for safe access. So it's a message. That's what this is doing. It's not it's not necessarily the burden on us. I think actually, contrary to Andrew, we haven't had that many of these requests.
We've had a few.
A few.
About half a dozen maybe, or
But
Other
But
than
Howard,
that one,
when
I
we have
can't
had to,
remember
when we've had little missions and we've gone to look around the neighborhood to look at loading zones and all of that stuff, we have noticed double parked vehicles in front of those,
Yeah, you have to be blind not to
Yes,
notice at all.
yes.
So really, it's any measure, and also when you talk about parking spots, there have been very few, in my opinion, that have come to us. You know, I was co-chair for 6 years. I could count maybe 3. And so if it doubles to 6 or 10, there are 10,000 parking spots on the Upper West Side. I think to lose, what is that, 0.1%, 0.01%, to have this possibility for large buildings to give greater safety and access for older people or frail people, I think it's a good compromise.
I guess my issue, sorry, I guess my thing is that, I mean, I don't care about losing the parking spots, that's not the issue, but clearly a gentleman who has a car, who lives in the building, correct, applied for, came to the board to add this space, and he didn't want it. So for the community board to basically just have kind of a blanket rule where we effectively approve it without even hearing the specific case-by-case scenario.
On the other hand, we've approved the parking spot, we've approved the use of that space for a car implicitly. Yeah.
Well, implicitly.
That's implicitly, yeah.
We have.
Right. Well, the point is, we haven't, it's been approved.
Yeah.
So we're just changing the default from one space for a car to one space for curb access. We're just changing the default. Okay, it wasn't us. It was done in the 1950s, and we could argue a bit about the merits, right?
Yeah.
But the point is that we're just changing the default from always having a parked car there to having a building, having the option to seek one spot for more simple curb access.
You're saying we're gonna think differently about the curb in that.
In that point,
buildings that-
I think it's 0.01% of the case. Yes.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Can Carey has.
Go ahead, Carey.
Well, two things that come to mind. The first is I can imagine that buildings with more than 50 residents are overwhelmingly going to be clustered together. They're usually not distributed evenly throughout the district. And so I can imagine situations where you have building next to building where you're going to have all of them that would then potentially request this, because who wouldn't want that? I can see it.
Most buildings don't want it.
Well, so I can imagine that they would be clustered together in the first instance. And if buildings wouldn't want it, I think potentially cuts against us having a blanket support. But the bigger question that I had in my head was really, DOT has been doing good work thinking imaginatively about how we can rework our use of the street holistically. And it's a combination of drop-off points, micro hubs, other initiatives. And it's more of a question of, is there any way that we can take this idea and work within that framework instead of just saying, we're willing to, create loading zones whenever there's a building that requests it, but something that works a little bit more holistically with reimagining how we're using the street for all of the different uses.
Well, every big journey begins with one step, and this is one extremely modest step, I thought, in that regard. So when you say holistically, this is a tiny step in that whole process, and that's how I saw it.
We do have a question from the community, if you don't mind.
So just actually, I was
Rita,
about
do you
to
mind
say,
stepping to the owl? Thank you.
We're just
Rita.
asking so because the
Rita,
owl,
you're the
it's hard to,
community.
it's hard for those, there are a
I'm the
lot of people on
community, yes.
Zoom.
You don't
and
have
we
a
want-
name, you're the community.
I'm the community, yes.
Hi,
Um,
Rita.
So just to dovetail on what Carey just said, I've been looking at a lot of the ideas that are coming forth about kind of holistically looking at the street. And so I'm a big advocate for people with disabilities, and especially the elderly, who really do need a space to be safe in when they get off, whether they want to be picked or whatever. Equally speaking, there are other uses of the curb that we really need to look at. Okay, so it's everything from merchants that need drop-off areas for their merchandise because they don't get access. Otherwise, there are double parked trucks everywhere. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not a street redesign expert, but I will say this. I will say that if there were spaces on every single block to use it in a more universal way, to give people access to the street in a safe way, whether it be trucks that need to unload, people that need to get into cars, whatever it is, just having a universal space, even really on every block. Because
Accessoride vehicles.
Accessoride, they just on 72nd and Columbus, they just put in, and I don't know what it's called, tables and chairs on a curb.
Yeah.
I have to say, it's not very well used. And so to use that largest space, just have tables and chairs and people not using it, maybe because they're using the street, the restaurant, outdoor restaurants, and maybe they're using that to sit down rather than that, but really looking at those spaces, because those spaces are so hard to come by. So when we use those spaces, we really have to think through, what are we using them for? Do we have a way of using them more universally? So that not just have tables and chairs at, but maybe like a place for the elderly to come, to get off the street or to get picked up in front. Maybe it's not in front of their building per se, but maybe there are places to set aside on each block to think about all the different uses for all the different people that are out there that need to use them. So that's all I have to say.
That sounds great. There's a line I
Thank
always
you.
use, the perfect shouldn't be the enemy of the good. And again, there's a lot of talk about rethinking the curb and all, and yes. But again, the perfect shouldn't be the enemy of the good. This is an extremely modest baby step to increasing safety.
Around the table, maybe? I saw Ken.
Yes, go whichever way you like. I'd like to bring Sofia back too, so I'm gonna click on her face. If I can. Whichever way you want to go.
Thanks, Alex and Jamie, and Jessie.
My question, Howard, is, have you considered a time limit for this, like
That's what I was gonna ask Sofia.
8 a.m. to 8 p.m., for instance, something like that?
Actually, Sophia had an idea on that, and I certainly would do that as a friendly amendment.
Sophia, do you want to?
That way people can still park overnight.
Dynamic.
Yeah.
parking Schedules?
That was it. Yeah, a lot of cities in Europe do this actually, and we're going to introduce it here in Prague, is that it's called dynamic curb usage, essentially, that you have a 24-hour schedule, and like in the early hours and late evenings, you have loading, unloading, and then during the day it's pick up drop off zone, and then at night it remains residential parking. So that's just an example to Rita's point about how it's universal, but you really can maximize the schedule. So yeah.
Yeah, I would do that as a friendly amendment, but I can't resist pointing out that a few years ago when we had the NYPD here, and there was some talk about older people being hit late at night by cars. And I'm quoting the NYPD representative suggested old people not go out so late at night. So, yeah.
You gotta be kidding.
Yes.
I have to know.
So, yes, I would view it as a friendly amendment, but I do think that we should recognize that old people are entitled to go out late at night if they want. I guess they take their life in their hands as a result, but yes, I would view that as a friendly amendment.
Great. Thank you, Sophia. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Sophia, just while we have you? Okay, great.
No, that's it. Thank you.
So who would decide in a rental building to make a request?
I assume that the super would make it on behalf of the residents.
Or tenant association. if
Or
they have one.
tenant association.
What if the owner his building or her building?
I guess, wouldn't it would be up to whoever, like the managing agent or whoever speaks for the building.
Yeah.
Okay, well, so the managing agent.
So if
The
they.
managing agent rental. Right, building speaks for the owner.
Right.
That's right.
Not like in a co-op.
Well, I think we have, I don't want to put anyone in the.
I give that as an example of a lot of
The co-op's
issues.
easy because there's a co-op.
Carey's example of, if you have 3 contiguous apartment buildings and a fire hydrant, you'd basically be clearing, at least half or 2/3 of the curbs. I know Ken doesn't care, but there are so many issues that you would have to deal with. And, it's a very rare occurrence when you don't have a hydrant or a standing zone or the building's entrances close to the corner where there's space. And, you know, obviously, I just anecdotally, I don't think this is really a huge problem. There are typically breaks in the parking of one kind or another on almost every block.
Presumably,
somebody-
if there's that configuration, the building wouldn't be requesting it. I had in mind, again, this was all came out of watching this neighbor of mine navigate. We don't have a fire hydrant. We don't have a loading zone. This is what we have to deal with. Even I have to deal with, you know, this is kind of silly. When I walk my dog, I'm perfectly agile myself. Navigating the dog out with permanently double parked cars all the time. And frankly, I don't think my co-op board would go for it. So I don't think this is going to apply to my building. But the point is, if there is a strong feeling for this, I think we should support it.
Should we let Doug go and then?
So you want the public, let the public go first.
The public.
I just wanted,
West 72nd Street
I just
chorus
Block
wanted,
Association.
I just wanted one thing, I apologize,
No,
but I
no,
already had
of
my time,
course don't
but,
apologize.
No, it's okay.
I think maybe we could do a pilot program and try designing one universal space that is conducive for drop-offs, for kids to use. I don't know if someone said this, I'm sorry if they did. But along the lines of what I was saying is like creating that one universal space and see how it really works.
With the dynamic parking
With the
schedule that.
Exactly,
Sofia.
so that elderly have a place to get off. You know, we don't have to talk about, I always look at low hanging fruit. So like, if we talk about one pilot for one block to do it and see how, especially if there are merchants on that block, elderly on that block, how that space would be used, how could something be designed for that?
And see if somebody who violates that actually gets a ticket.
Yeah, and it's a multi-purpose
I don't want to be
space.
late.
Yep.
It'll become a low.
Avi, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I'm in support of that. And I know when we brought up the need for that loading zone area in front of my building, it was brought up that West End Avenue between 79th Street and 87th Street has almost on every block a loading area for passengers, for unloading your car, with people, packages, or anything else. And it was mentioned that the city just started that as a test area. So maybe we could find out what the results of it, in the way she was saying, from the city. If they ran it as a test, why don't we find out if the city did take information on it? And work from there.
Okay, so I want to say one thing and then kind of go in reverse here. So if we were to pass a resolution like this, I'd like to know procedurally, what would that mean for this community board? Does it become a ministerial act where any applicant that has a building over 50 units, we automatically approve it and it doesn't go to the committee anymore? It just goes straight to our district management office and it's approved? That's a question.
That's my
The other, and of course, the question is why 50? Why not 75? Why not 100? The other thing is that, are we saying that we want to create a space where a accessoride, a taxi, an Uber pulls into the space? Because if that's the case, then one space is not enough. Because in reality, would it be one space? If you're pulling, in other words, there's breaks between people that are parking, and very often those breaks are very small, especially with less parking. I've noticed that when I drop my elderly mother off in a car. So the question is, if we actually want, do we want a car to be able to pull in? And if that's the case, it can't just be one space, because then you'd be having someone parallel parking into a space.
Again, the perfect should not be the enemy is good. If it's one space, the car could go in like a foot or two and have someone walk the 3 or 4 feet from the car to the curb and not be impeded by a car. Again, there's all sorts of ideas.
All right, I have more.
Just a simple.
Okay.
Wait, hold on, can I just interject?
Yeah, but I'm not finished.
No, I want to piggyback on what you just
Uh-huh.
said about this. That is why a loading zone is different from curb
Exactly.
access.
Sure.
A loading zone gives you more space
Right.
to pull
This is
in.
curb
I understand.
access.
And look,
I'm agreeing with you, Jeff.
Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, listen, I'm very sympathetic to this. As I said, I have an elderly mother, and I have noticed that we have had difficulty. Now, the building that my mother lives in is not 50 units. So that would be a problem. But it seems like what we're asking for is like a wholesale approval of anyone that comes in. And if statistically, through an initial Google search, we have about 400 buildings that have 50 units, then we're talking about potentially 400 parking spaces, which, by the way, is equivalent to the number of parking spaces that we removed with the Central Park West bike lane, which I supported. So there's more questions here than I think we have answers to. I don't know that we've had any overwhelming number of requests. I think that we've handled it very efficiently. We've approved many of them. We've disapproved a few.
There've been very few requests, and I really suspect that if we adopted this, there really wouldn't be much of an increase. The point is to send a message that if people in a building feel they need curb access, if they feel there are enough people who are disabled or old or frail or whatever in the building, we would support that. That's all this is saying.
Yeah, to me, I'm sympathetic to the issue, but it just seems like a solution in search of a problem. I think.
I told you the problem in my building.
No,
This
but
woman had to not.
But that's not a problem because they still could have come to the board. We get a limited number of these, and I would be more than happy to deal with it on a case-by-case basis and do a resolution saying, we encourage anyone, regardless of the size building, to come to us.
I can do that as a possible friendly amendment.
Just because I think that each block is gonna have its own situation, and having something blanket over it, which also kind of discriminates based on the number of units in the building, just complicates it for all the good reasons. So maybe it just, if you need access to the building,
I would
you don't
consider
have
that as
it,
a friendly amendment.
we encourage you to come to Community Board 7.
I don't think you're offering a friendly.
Well, I wasn't, I mean.
I think he's saying we don't need the resolution.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but if you wanted
No,
to
but
change it
right,
instead
you
of
want to
saying, yeah, my thing is, I don't think we need it, but if you wanted to accept it as friendly, which in my opinion would kind of be changing it from 50 units and just saying, if you need a loading space for whatever reason from your building, Community Board 7 encourages you to ask for it,
which is precisely what they can do.
Yeah, but if we want to proactively send a message.
Right,
to
because
people
most buildings, most people don't know that's an option.
Is there anyone who wants to offer?
Yes.
Forgive me, maybe you want to do this.
Yes.
But is there anyone who wants to offer a forgive me, Howard, but a resolution along the lines of what Rita and Avi have proposed for a pilot that would?
Why, if they can, I guess if they can come to us now, why do we do
Same
it?
point.
Yeah, I mean, if they can come to it.
Well, because it would experiment with the dynamic curb scheduling, that's not done in our city.
But I think a pilot would be different on every, one pilot on one block may
That's
not be
fair.
applicable
Occurred to
to
me
another, yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to put it out there because our community recommended it and I wanted to respect the suggestion. Can't.
So I remember one of the first things I encountered on this board 16 years ago was a western loading zone at 96th Street. And we voted it down. And it seems to me, because we said it would set a precedent, and it seems to me that we voted down most of the requests that have come to us, because it would set a precedent. And so I would offer, I think one issue that people are grappling with here is that removing the committee board from any say-so on this. And just saying, okay, 15 units, you got it. So maybe a way to, boards don't like to get involved and use their voice. So maybe what we could do is say this resolution satisfies the requirements. You have, it's sort of like, I forget what the legal term is, but we're inclined to support you. And the burden of proof is on people, whoever objects to it. But So it's like a public interest.
But I think that's what it does, because we're not approving it, we're just telling the DOT we would support it, and then the DOT could say, we're not going for this. We're just telling the DOT that if there is a building that's a large building on the Upper West Side, has gotten together and is requesting this one space for curb access, we as a community board are cool with it, so to speak. You DOT have to make a decision based upon all those other criteria.
No, I totally agree with that.
To close the loop on, Andrew, your point, and Howard, I think what you said was okay. Are we still assigning 50 units as the
It
number?
was a somewhat, candidly, it was a somewhat arbitrary number.
I just think that without data, like, I don't know in this neighborhood what percentage of residents live in apartments that are 50 units. 50 units,
About
75.
10% of the residential units, residential buildings in our district are
10%. Okay, is that, I can't remember if that's in the resolution or not. It seems like, okay, but I guess what I'm saying is, could we remove that as a way to make it a bit of a more blanket situation, that all large buildings? Or is that? Well, okay. I just, I feel like without having a lot of data in front of me, I guess if it's 10%, it's 10%.
Yeah, I think it's a
Maybe
safe
a way to
assumption.
classify.
This is all I'm saying, is that in a building on the Upper West Side with 50 people, there are extremely likely to be a good number of senior citizens in there. There's likely to be a couple of disabled people. It's just you're playing the odds.
I would propose that we hear from Carey and then perhaps call the question.
So to solicit a friendly amendment, I am a little concerned about how many of these there might be on a block. So I'll ask just to consider that we say something, provided that there won't be more than, 1 or 2 per block, in the DOT's discretion. But while considering that, if we have DOT, I'd be very curious to know what their response to something like this would be. Is this, if we pass this, is this going to be something that they would be willing to then implement? Or do they want us to be looking at these things holistically, or they're not inclined to be doing this to begin with?
Factual background, they have a program for this. We're just saying we're on board with the program. I used the term before, we're cool with it. That's what, this is a program the DOT has. Buildings can request this kind of curb access. We're just saying as a community board, we support it. It's an existing program.
Okay, and DOT doesn't, building does that, they make the request and DOT then says, okay, but we need to
Yes
hear
or
from
no.
the community board, or?
They can ask the community board, but we're just saying presumptively that if the DOT, the building wants it and the DOT is predisposed to offer it, we're fine with it too. That's all this is attempting to say.
Howard, if they already have a program and you're intent on promoting a resolution, why don't we just say, full disclosure, I'm not gonna vote for it, but why don't you just say we support the DOT program?
Because the program is sometimes accepting these requests and sometimes denying these requests. We're trying to
Well, so will we.
Well, I don't think we should. I think if again, that's the point of this. There's a point to this. The point is that if a large building feels it needs curb access and applies for this and goes to the DOT, the building and the DOT should know we support the request. That's what this is saying.
We're just putting our thumb on the
I just
scale.
want to say, to your point, the enemy should not be the enemy of the perfect should not be the enemy of the good.
I have that line down.
Sorry, that's right. You've said it many times, and I agree with that. The practical part that I'm concerned about is that I don't think that these spots are mostly going to be used for people with disabilities. I think in reality, people are going to come home from their country homes and they're going to go to Costco and they're going to be unloading their groceries and their golf clubs. And I think that, and I actually, I don't know, maybe there's a way. I mean, seriously.
If this passes, I'm gonna get a country home.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
Are you now or have you ever been a member of the community?
That's right. That's right. Good night and good luck. No, but here's what I'm saying. If it was a there was signage on this dedicated spot that was dedicated for people with disabilities, I would be much more in favor of
And
that.
a big ticket.
If it was some, because, no, but what I'm saying is that this is, look, anybody who owns an apartment, who rents an apartment, this, you're talking about, you have a dedicated spot right in front, of course they're gonna want this. And I'd like to, I hope that is, if it is approved, that it is best used by people that need it, not want it.
All right, I think we should call, I think we should call the question.
Can you show the, therefore be it resolved again, please?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, Jamie,
I've been talking.
But this isn't, I mean, I'm not looking at this as just about people with disabilities or the elderly. This is also about, you know, one of the things that contributes to the sense of chaos in the city is the double parking. And this is going to incrementally reduce double parking. Somebody's dropping off, you know, from their country house, you know, to get the golf clubs in or the groceries or whatever, and they're able to pull over.
Is that really that bad? Is that terrible?
You
You know, it's really not a terrible thing that if someone did use it
And
for
then
that.
the accessoride or the person with a disability pulls up next to them and says.
One last thing. One last thing.
Okay, Andrew gets the last word.
Would you consider in the therefore be it resolved that calls upon the DOT to implement such a zone and alert CB7 when such a zone is granted?
Totally, yeah. Sure.
Because we need to know where.
And if it's
gonna
getting
be
out of
more.
control, we'll revisit the resolution.
Yes.
And
Okay.
Carrie's,
Big sign.
and Carrie's friendly that no more than 2 per block.
Let's throw that in.
I think that's
Sounded
important.
like the big CI.
Are we, we're keeping 50 residential
Or
units, not?
one per block that has a fire.
I think as
Okay,
long
I
as
think
though no
we-
more than 2 per block is in there,
Yeah,
I'm
I
fine with the
Exactly.
number.
Okay,
Okay, so the questions,
call the question.
Jamie, are you, yeah, this is,
Go ahead, call it.
yeah, and those are the
Sorry.
friendly amendments.
No more
Before
than
we
2
do
per
that,
block.
yeah, just we
Please.
put in that dynamic parking schedule, but we should actually maybe set a schedule. Or else I don't know if this makes sense in there. Maybe we take out this amendment. I don't know.
I like the amendment.
What's the amendment?
Why do you think it,
Or
need-
just the provision that's in there.
you want,
Well,
why would
if
you
we're
like,
saying there's a schedule, then we probably should say that like from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. it's residential parking, from 5 a.m. to, I don't know, 10 a.m. or 9 a.m. it's loading and unloading, something like that. So I'm just saying, like, if we're gonna talk about a schedule, maybe we should specify that. And also a question to DOT of like, does this require signage at this parking spot then too, so people know the schedule of this as well? So there just might be.
Why do we need to be prescriptive about it? Can't we just say,
Yeah,
we just say it could be, you know, suspended like for different overnight hours and let DOT decide, like.
Yeah.
I don't know if
Yeah.
you've ever done it.
Yeah, I don't think we
So
should.
there-
Wait,
okay.
West End,
Well,
almost
wait.
all parking
We're
has
just saying it
time,
could
you know, with
be.
the, with
We're just
the
saying it
alternate
could be.
side.
Alternate side is dynamic.
Yeah.
But
They have
No
it on
standing
the-
8 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Yeah, maybe
It's
it should be
dynamic parking.
I think we should defer to the
So we need to say-
DOT on this.
Let's vote on.
Are we still?
Sophia, are you okay with
We're
that?
not
We're keeping
doing
50
dynamic,
50
just let's
units?
be
Yeah,
clear,
yeah,
we're not
that's fine,
doing
yeah.
dynamic parking space.
Are we
Just
still at
doing
50 units?
loading zone.
Yeah, let's keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
We still at 50 units?
Yeah.
Yeah, leave it 50.
Okay, I'm voting for.
So wait, you know how you're.
Make it 100.
Well, that, you see, that,
Okay, this
I'd be
is
inclined
what
to vote for it.
Only
Yeah,
super
and therefore-
If we could, folks, I just want to make sure, Sophia, you would rather have it be removed entirely than to have it added if we don't,
Prescribed.
yes.
I
Right?
think so. Yeah, I mean, I just think that makes more sense, but I'll leave it
Okay.
up to you guys. So
Okay, so
yeah.
there's the resolution. Are we ready to vote on it?
Yes.
Okay, the question's been called, or I'm calling it, so all those, all those in favor? 1, 2, 4, 5, Jamie? No, me, I'm abstaining. 5,
Sophia?
Sophia? Yeah. 6, sorry, okay, 6. Oppose? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Andrew will abstain.
Abstaining.
No.
You voted in favor. No abstaining for cause,
There's
so
been some changes made, I
it
voted for it.
passes 6-4 to 1-0. So it will go to our full board, which is taking place, we imagine, I think, on the 25th. Thank you, Wednesday, the 25th. So
It's coming up at the steering committee.
no, there's
There'll be
a
a full
full
board.
board meeting in June, a second full board meeting. You might have missed that.
Yes,
since you missed full board.
25th.
So are you guys all set? Somebody will be there to present it. Okay, I know it's weird that we have 2 meetings. I don't know why we don't just have a July meeting, actually, if we're gonna do 2 in June.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I can send it to you.
Are we ready? Are we ready to move on?
Yes.
Okay, great. So again, June 25th, for anyone who's listening and anyone in the audience, that's when this will be voted on at the full board. Okay, so now we're moving on to our final item, which is an update from a presentation. I want to reintroduce Laura Sachs, who is here in her capacity as a private citizen and resident of the Upper West Side. I'd also just like to correct any information that went out prior to this meeting about her title and role, that she is here not on behalf of any other city agency or organization. She is here in her personal capacity, but also one where she is a highly trained urban planner and architect. So just to make sure that is clear, tonight's update is about an item we've talked about at the end of last year. So those of you who were on the committee probably heard this item, which is a proposal for an area I think we can all agree on, which needs some work, which is the Sherman Square area, specifically Broadway between 69th and 71st, and a pedestrianization proposal. So tonight's presentation is, again, from a private resident. We'll see where it goes tonight. We will hear Laura's presentation and then go to the community. I know there are a number of block associations and other entities here tonight who will probably want to weigh in and provide feedback and input. And then we'll have a discussion as a committee about what to do next. So over to you, Laura.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So I appreciate the clarification. While I do work for the School Construction Authority and I am a very active member of the West 72nd Street Block Association, I am here just as a resident who has observed, and as the discussion tonight proves, there's a lot of challenges with limited amount of space and a lot of needs in the city. So the area that I'd like to talk about is highlighted with this red bubble. It's the intersection, it's actually the northbound portion of Broadway between 69th and 71st. Primary goals are pedestrian safety, busway speed, as well as pedestrian plaza, really primarily focusing on all the benefits that pedestrian safety could have by the traffic proposal that I'm going to present now. So I also just want to mention that as we're all familiar with the area, we have very long crosswalks, as you can see on the screen here. We have a need for trash containerization. We have quite a chaotic situation with bikes and not adequate space designated, or they're on the sidewalks, and sidewalks are already very crowded. And as we just discussed, I just took this picture a couple days ago of a double parked UPS truck blocking a travel lane, as we see all over the city. It's a significant issue, which this proposal addresses. Just want to mention, as bus speed, we rank 57th out of 59th in the city, and pedestrian plazas, while we are very lucky to have Central Park and Riverside Park, as far as pedestrian plazas, this community is 34th out of 59th in terms of pedestrian access to pedestrian plazas. So if we can go now to the area that, let me just zoom out a little. The area that I'm presenting this idea is the northbound traffic on Broadway and the northbound traffic on Amsterdam Avenue. It currently all merges right here between 71st and 72nd. So it's merging anyway. The idea that I have is to divert through traffic only. It's left at 69th Street, right on Amsterdam. So the traffic is merging between 69th and 70th rather than between 71st and 72nd. With that diversion of through traffic, we have an opportunity to create, I don't know if you can see it. I have other drawings that zoom in a little closer. Actually, let me go to the next page. To really zoom in. By diverting this traffic, this area here, there's an existing bus stop. So the area in pink would be a curb extension for public access, public plaza. Sorry, I have to zoom in. And then this hatched area here would be a loading zone with the dynamic usage where it could be loading for all the businesses and dropping off to enjoy a sandwich or do some shopping, or for a residence. So this area here would be for dynamic usage loading zone, local traffic only, busway would be created, a bus pad. So bus speeds would be increased. This pink area would be used for a pedestrian plaza, but most importantly is the distances, these crosswalks. We can all appreciate how much shorter the crosswalks would be, particularly at the area at 71st. I have some images here of, in pink would be pedestrian only. So you can see both of these photos at 71st Street. By redirecting through traffic and having a busway and local traffic and local delivery only, we gain a significant amount of space for pedestrians. And so everything in pink here you would see would be a pedestrian plaza, planters. So we would have pedestrian safety improvements, bus speeds would be increased because dedicated busway relieves some of the congestion on the crowded sidewalks, provide a place for loading and unloading, address the spatial needs for trash containers and bike racks, and not least of all, greenery, planters, which is what I envision as the barrier between the loading zone and the busway and the pedestrian plaza could certainly be planters. This plan is, so here you can see this is a zoomed in area right at the area where the bus station is. Here the bus stop is, a bus pad. In orange would be a painted bus lane. And that's a benefit of just redirecting the traffic that's merging anyway. So in addition to these ideas for the northbound Broadway, I also want to mention that there's pedestrian safety problems, particularly the need for a mid-block crossing on 72nd Street, as well as this, if you look at this photo, I'm sorry, there's a photo of, next page. There's a pinch point here at the north side. Here it is, this photo here. The north subway, the north side of the south subway building. This is a 9-foot pinch point. It is crowded when the subway lets out. I see a lot of people walking in the street. So one of the suggestions I have would be, again, curb extensions, relieving some of the congestion on our sidewalks with pedestrian safety improvements like a mid-block crossing, the expansion of the North Plaza, as well as finally the little triangle by Sherman Square is the saddest looking park in all of the city. Would love to see perhaps a stone bench surrounding that, similar to the benches that we all enjoy on Verde Square, where it would provide seating. Just to, we all know there's a PS 199 is down the block. We have large percentage, I mean, so it's a busy area, tourists, people of all ages, elderly. We could use more seating, public seating. So I certainly think this little park would benefit. But just to conclude, the really major idea that I appreciate for consideration is the redirecting of traffic through traffic only, and reimagine what the northbound street of Broadway could be between 69th and 72nd.
Thank you, Laura. Just before we get to Q&A, a quick clarification that we're going to start tonight with community, unless these are, do you have points of fact or factual questions?
Just have one question, real.
Let's go ahead.
No, the green circles with the black inside,
That's the existing Broadway Mall.
That's the.
Oh, the mall.
That's the
Okay,
mall.
This plan doesn't have any, yeah, the center is the Broadway Mall. Adjacent to it is a pale orange, that would be the busway. Then the hatched stripe would be a lane dedicated for loading and unloading and dynamic usage for parking overnight. The pink area is pedestrian plaza, tables, chairs, open space, expanding the space on the sidewalk and relieving some of the congestion. Particularly if you look at all the businesses, we have quite a few of businesses that serve food, and as you know, by the plaza in front of the McDonald's Starbucks area, there is a lot of people who really crave outdoor space, and
Shakespeare needs to be updated.
Yeah.
I know. But it's still going to be a bookstore, and they have outdoor seating now, and we can really imagine, as you can see, as Broadway has been reimagined in parts downtown. I'd really love to see us imagine what could these 2 blocks be, with the only adjustment being to creating busway and through traffic being diverted. Didn't address the bike lane, as I thought. Let's start with just looking at the traffic patterns.
Okay, so before we go to further committee questions, we're going to go to the community. But I just wanted to clarify, when you said for your consideration tonight, what would you like us to consider?
I would like a resolution for the DOT to look at the traffic change that would result in 2.5 blocks of pedestrian access.
Okay, so that's what's on the table tonight.
What's on the
for us
table tonight
to-
is it's what's in those highlighted.
Literally on the
yeah.
table and on the table for us to consider.
Literally on the table.
Can we pass it down here? Or-
So while yeah.
Just to clarify, you're talking about this shift in the yellow highlighter.
Exactly.
So I may have a question also for Andrew along the way of this conversation, but I won't delay us now with that question.
I'd also like to suggest that it's possible to do a pilot program where we put a sign that says through traffic goes left, buses only, and put out, barriers, metal barriers like they do on open streets, to see what would it be like if we did this as a test pilot. I think we'd really see, a lot of the concerns people would have might be assuaged by having a test.
Not if they don't know what a swatch means.
Ease, concerns being eased.
Thank you for this presentation. And again, just, do you have a factual quick?
Yes, as just a point of clarification, I recall us getting a presentation some time ago. Is this the same proposal? Is this a modified proposal?
I proposed initially closing it completely, and I realized how the bus route really is, it's an incredibly, I don't have the data on it, the bus, not only, and I saw the presentation for for the crosstown at 34th Street, and bus speeds are a really hot topic, as we discussed at West 79th Street. So in the interest of improving bus speeds, I certainly think having a dedicated busway and the bus pad and letting the buses go through, and we still gain quite a bit of space, but don't disrupt that important element of our city.
So Laura took feedback from November at this committee meeting, and I think she'll do it again as well. But so we'll start with community that's in the audience and then go to Zoom. Jessie, is there anyone from the community on Zoom that has their hands raised? I can check on that while we're going to the community that's in the room.
Can we put some time on it?
We're gonna have we have 20 minutes total for this. We're gonna try to wrap up this meeting by 9, a little after 9, the latest, hopefully not. I think we'll see what the questions are.
Yeah.
I think it's important to hear from these folks so that Laura can incorporate them into her feedback.
Just a survey, right? Because you only proposed to have a survey.
Have a study to think about it, okay? So
Correct.
maybe I saw. Yes,
First the owl, right?
Mr. Gann.
Okay,
Mr.
yes.
Gann.
It's a pleasure to be here, Andrew Gann. And I guess since I haven't brought this before the Board of Directors at Broadway Mall Association, I'll just say I'm speaking on behalf of myself as a private citizen, but to really thank Laura for being this very thoughtful plan. We are very much interested. This is the sort of the area where the first mall, exists, because we take over at 70th Street. And we're very interested in that mall. We're interested in Sherman Square and tying all of this together. So I think it's a very thoughtful plan. It could be, the gateway to the Great Greenway, as we call it, and provide, and really calm the traffic down at that, that critical intersection at 71st Street in particular, because that's exceptionally wide. And so, again, I just want to commend Laura for this very thoughtful plan and urge the committee to, to take a look at it and take the next step, recommend that we, bring it to DOT and, and have the experts take a look at it, particularly the diversion, which we understand, that's not our expertise, but but that does make the difference. And we've seen that in other places. I would like to say that that bump out on the north side of the south side of 72nd Street subway plaza is something I've seen used to good effect at 157th Street in Broadway, where they've daylighted the area around Il Catania Payan Park, and it really does extend that triangle park and make it feel so much safer. So I think that's a very good suggestion, as well as the mid-block crossing on the commercial street on 72nd Street, which Rita would kill me if I didn't support that, but I do support it. So that's all I wanted to say. But
Thank you.
You mean the community would kill you?
Anyone else?
The whole community.
I guess Rita, did you want
I
to?
don't know if anybody else.
Kara, did you? Okay.
Yeah. You go. Coach the owl, right? Coach the owl.
My name is Kara Kelly. I'm the vice president of the West 69th Block, West 69th Street Block Association. So my question is just I want to understand what it is. So northbound, starting at 69th, it would be closed to through traffic, but buses would still go through. And then, but if you have a private vehicle and you want to say, my elderly mother, I want to drop her off at her apartment building at 2020 Broadway, I could do that.
Absolutely.
But then
And
I
there's-
have to leave.
And you would have to make the next turn.
Yep.
So there's a whole lane for you to be able to drop off somebody, whether they live there or they're, because they want to get a book. at the
Yeah,
bookstore.
or I want to drop someone off at the
Yeah.
bookstore. Okay, then my other question is, you had mentioned dynamic use of it. So in the evenings, after a certain time, there could be parking. So
Absolutely. Residential parking from whatever hours dynamic parking seems to make sense. But-
Okay, so I might
but-
actually get some more parking spots.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're not losing any parking, you're just losing the travel lanes.
Okay, all right. I understand. Thank you.
Thank you, neighbor. Down the block neighbor. I think we have, did anyone else have any? Rita? Sure. Yeah, please come. We have a couple people online.
So first of all, just looking at West 72nd Street and the surrounding area, we consider it the gateway of the Upper West Side. I'm sure 96th Street would not agree with that, but we on 72nd Street too, but
Columbus Circle wouldn't agree with that either.
and that's true. But one of the things that we are missing at the gateway of the Upper West Side is a communal space. And when I look at this, this design, and I don't know anything about transportation, so I'm just gonna stay away from that. But what we do know is we encourage community to always be able to congregate, have spaces to congregate, talk, meet each other. And when you're in this area, there is no place to be. It is so chaotic. And so doing a pilot and like just seeing what it would be like, because when I go on like 14th Street and other areas where they've opened up the street a little bit so people can sit and talk, and it makes such a difference in the community, just such a difference. So from the vantage point of the Block Association, we want community, we want to bring community together, and having a space to do so would be incredible. So Laura, thank you so much for bringing this, because it all comes from our hearts, and we hope we can work together with everybody to make it work for everybody. And if we can provide any input and feedback from community, we would do that as well. So we'd love to work with you in partnership on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. So I think that wraps up community here in the room. Before we go to Carl, who I think has dialed it, is elevated. I wanted to just make sure, is our 68th Street Block Association President, Shane, on the line? I know he said he would try to join. Jessie, is he on? I'm trying to get all the block associations included who said they might be participating. And Steve Anderson, I think, also was on for a brief time, but is off. Okay, so they both have at least expressed interest in wanting to hear more. So
Elizabeth, so I promoted Shane.
Oh, Shane, great.
I reached out to Steve. I haven't heard back.
Thank you, Jessie. Okay, Shane, over to you if you want to ask any questions and provide comments. Shane, are you there?
He just joined.
I can text. Okay, great. Shane, over to you. Shane, are you with us?
Hello.
Hi, Shane.
Hello.
Okay, Shane,
Hello,
over to
hello.
you. We're here.
Okay, great. Okay, Laura, please, hi, Laura. Please clarify the number of lanes that we have on Broadway now and how you intend to use them.
There's one parking lane and 3 travel lanes, so we have a total of 4 lanes. What would be proposed is 2 lanes for pedestrian plaza, 1 lane for dynamic usage for parking and loading, and 1 lane for buses. So total of 4 to become a sidewalk extension and 2 become for vehicle usage.
Okay, in theory, I don't object necessarily. I just don't think in reality you'll be able to maintain 2 for pedestrians. The buses, 3 bus routes will continue to run there through the night, and vehicles will continue to drop off through the night. So I just fear that ultimately this will not be 2 taken away for pedestrians. So I'd like to say that up front. The second thing is I'd just like to point out for 69th Street, when the study is done, and by the way, it is a substantial upgrade from the initial plan where you were fully taking away Broadway because of the 3 routes of the buses. There is no way that 3 bus routes could have been diverted on 69th Street to Amsterdam Avenue theoretically. But the point I was making is on 69th Street, there is a supermarket with a loading dock. That's the new Morton Williams that's there, as well as a garage from the Dorchester, which is quite a busy location. So I'm just putting that down on the table now that we may have benefit, but there are certain drawbacks here as well. To be explored further.
Sorry for interrupting. As part of the traffic study, I'd also like to suggest some of the diversion could happen at 67th as well. But again, DOT needs to do a traffic study. And I appreciate your comment.
Yeah, 67, I'll just say is possible, except just keep in mind that takes everyone in front of the Merkin Concert Hall, which is a very long, narrow block to go down.
That is a good point.
Yeah.
There's also loading in the block with Carey Garden.
Okay, so Thanks, Shane. We have one more block association that couldn't be with us tonight, but submitted a letter that I'd like to read to the committee, if that's okay with everyone, and then we'll go to you, go to Streetopia, Carl. So
Steve
this,
Anderson is on also.
oh, Steve, sorry, I didn't, you're on now. Steve, why don't we go to you before we read the letter from 71st Street? Go ahead, Steve.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. I think that these are transformative and ideas for our community. And one of the things I want to urge is that we involve many more neighbors in the discussion about what this means and what the impact is. It's very hard for many residents of our community to follow all of the activities that you at CB7 are engaged in. There are dozens and dozens of issues of which we don't have two sides. We have 22 sides for almost every one of the issues that we are struggling with. So I want to ask that we try to have a dialogue about this, that we allow some time and opportunity and advance warning for those who would like to engage in the civic discussion about this, which will not only have impact on those blocks, but will have impact throughout our entire community. And this is a type of issue that I think demands greater dialogue. I know many of the block associations who are part of the Upper West Side Coalition and other groups are simply concerned, greatly concerned about these changes. It's not that they're against it, it's that they don't know about it. And it's our responsibility, I think, to engage with them and give them the opportunity to understand what is being shared and how they might engage in a discussion about what their thoughts are. So that's all I would like to ask, that you proceed with that as part of the plan. Part of the plan is to talk to our neighbors about these transformative ideas that have been presented. And I thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Steve. And that's exactly why we do meetings like we're doing tonight, which we noticed on our agenda, and we understand the importance of community conversation. We will make sure, I don't want to speak for Laura, but what we're doing tonight is simply getting an update from Laura, which we will be able to share publicly. And as DOT makes its recommendations, depending on what we resolve tonight at the community board level, there will be ample opportunities. I remember, I think we were all part of the discussion on City Bike years ago, where we came together as a community, and Community Board 7 hosted several public meetings. I would envision something like that. We see this as a true community effort, and this is just really us showing support for trying to move forward an idea for the neighborhood that we think sorely needs some attention, and letting DOT get back to us, and then hopefully having more community conversations. So thank you very much, Steve. I would like, along those lines, to read, sorry, Steve.
Elizabeth, there's Beth.
I'm sorry?
Beth also would like to speak.
Okay, Beth, yes, please.
Hi there. I agree this is a great plan that needs to be considered. I do want to just point out, I'm on 70th Street, obviously, at 120, so we're a ways down, but there is that school for Blessed Sacrament that's directly within 70th Street off Broadway. So by forcing the hard right on that strip, you will in fact be potentially putting the kids there sort of at risk of higher degree of risk of coming into contact with vehicles. We just had a really bad accident at that intersection a few nights ago. So just something to think about. I agree completely with Steve. I think, all of the impacted neighborhoods along the strip where this, at the end of the day, should reduce the traffic triangle that has been a disaster for forever up here, is a very good thing to do. So thank you very much for considering this. And thank you, Laura, for modifying the proposal.
Yeah, and again, I think we've heard from all the block associations right now. So this is a good start. And I'm going to read 71st Street now. Our friend, whose son was a former community board member, Chris Giordano, was unable to attend tonight on behalf of, I guess, I don't know if he's still dealing with issues on 67th Street or if he's still part of the coalition. But he also is eager to get involved. So I'm just going to quickly read. This is from Katina, the president of the 71st Street Block Association. Dear members of the Committee on Transportation and board members, we are writing once again to oppose the Broadway redesign proposal as we did when it was presented a few weeks ago. That was actually, I believe, in November. Thank you for listening to our concerns then and for working with us to improve the McDonald's pedestrian plaza and other parts of the neighborhood. As you know, we work closely with our elected officials and the bids and others to further our commitment to beauty and safety of the neighborhood. We believe that the redesign proposal will have negative consequences for our neighborhood and may divert attention from our request to DOT for a bike corral, an idea embraced by all. Importantly, we believe people with disabilities and older or frail people will be adversely impacted by this plan, which will remove bus stops and the ability of vehicles, including Accessoride, to stop and pick up people on Broadway in the areas that will be closed to traffic. The redesign proposal is likely to have other serious negative consequences, such as likely to cause gridlock as far south as Lincoln Center or even Columbus Circle as traffic attempts to turn left and go up Amsterdam, slowing of fire trucks, police, and ambulances trying to go north on Amsterdam, traffic displacement to nearby streets, potential disruption to businesses relying on vehicle access, including deliveries between 69th and 71st, reduced accessibility for people with mobility issues, potential decrease in foot traffic for surrounding businesses, potential negative impact on public transportation, potentially causing congestion in surrounding areas. Furthermore, some might argue that it can create a sense of isolation for those who heavily rely on cars for transportation. We understand that you may still want to move forward with exploring this proposed idea, but we appeal to you to explore the negative consequences. A better idea would be to use more curb extensions and adjust traffic and pedestrian lights to improve safety. And we look forward to having DOT approve and install a requested bike corral just off the curb close to McDonald's. This will greatly reduce chaos in that area. We look forward to engaging with you more in detail soon. That was from Katina Ellison and Karen Rashi for the record. So I don't know if you want to have any responses to that or other.
Well, certainly would be a great opportunity for them to see the plan as it has addressed many of those very legitimate concerns.
I would love to ask Andrew what you think about the bus, as our MTA experts, about the bus rerouting or diversion, I guess is a better.
Well, the buses seem to retain their route, but I do worry about the M11, the Amsterdam Avenue route. If all of these vehicles turn on the same street, I think that could cause a bottleneck in the 69th and Amsterdam area, which could delay the M11 bus, which is already on Amsterdam.
Okay, so can I see the paper?
Isn't that what we're precisely what we're asking DOT to look at?
Yeah, I thought we talked about that last time, did we not?
I don't know if we did, but that would certainly mean transit signal prioritization would really help the M11 if this proposal were to see the light of day.
So say again, that you're concerned about the M11. I did think we talked about it last time.
We talked about all the buses,
Right.
but it's been addressed.
Right, but the M11, not.
Has not been
Yeah,
addressed.
it goes up Amsterdam and everybody's turning on 69th, which
right.
may cause a bottleneck to the north.
Whereas if you give them the lead to turn earlier than 69th, give them the opportunity from Columbus Circle North where they can turn, maybe everybody wouldn't wait till 69th to make the turn.
They can do that anyway.
They can.
You don't have to give people leave.
But if Broadway is going to be off limits to them, you do have to let them know this is coming.
So you put a sign up down.
Columbus Circle, if you started there, yeah.
Since there are a lot of questions, why don't
Thank
we?
you.
Yeah, why don't we go around the table? Do you have anything else, Andrew? We can go around this way and just.
No.
Okay.
And it is a study, right?
Oh, I mean, I'll just say, I really appreciate the changes. You obviously
Yes,
listen,
thank you.
and it's particularly the bus, because obviously the 5 and the 7 and 104 and so on. So that to me is reassuring. And this is just a point of fact. We've said there's nowhere to sit, but right north of Sherman Square, there are a lot of benches that are not indicated on your plan. There's like a triangle. Do you know what I'm referring to? Right, it's sort of opposite the new gyro project.
In the Broadway Mall.
I guess would be the Broadway Mall, but there's a triangle It just, on the plan, it just doesn't indicate
Just not-
seats. It shows like an open space, but there are seats. I was there, you know,
I
I'm
walked it.
not taking from,
Yeah.
it just wasn't indicated on the plan. I think this is a great improvement from the first version of the saw. Yeah.
Okay.
I agree with everything that the letter said.
Okay.
I think, I won't reiterate them, but there are so many flaws in terms of traffic flow. Local traffic is still gonna be going in there, which means deliveries and drop-offs and people who live in those buildings. And so I'm not sure that it would be a quiet zone. I equate traffic calming with congestion and delay. But I know that this proposed resolution is limited to just asking DOT to study traffic patterns.
Yeah, things like the.
And I understand it's a very limited resolution.
Right.
So I'll only vote against it with half a heart instead of a whole heart. Because I honestly think there are so many problems. And in any event, 5 years from now, I won't be on the board. I don't know if Howard will, but if he is, this study, you can add to his list of things that we will never hear from DOT.
Oh, boy.
Okay, well, I'm gonna take a quick, before we go to Alex, if we, I regret that I did not call on Carl. So Carl, do you want to briefly address any questions or speak? We can elevate you now.
Totally. Yeah, I'm here. I'll be super quick. I just wanted to thank Laura for this. It's such an elegant solution with such a simple move that I think would do the thing that Rita kind of alluded to, which is create this sort of dynamic public space street side, which is I mean, it's the thing we all travel to Europe and these sort of other dense cities that are not in America to experience. And I think it would just be such a beautiful addition to this part of the Upper West Side. And I want to also I want to sort of shout out the idea of a pilot. I think Laura brought that up, and I think Rita sort of echoed that. I think it addresses a lot of Steve's points and a lot of the points in that letter. It's really easy to imagine all of the possible negative consequences of something. And it's really hard to understand, to have abstract discussions about transformative changes to the street. And I think a pilot addresses both of those things, where you can try the thing, it can be for a set period of time, you can collect data, and then you can see. And I think the discussions that would come out of that would be a lot more robust. I think a lot more honest, quite frankly, because people would have the experience of the space. And I think it would lead to a much stronger project in the long run. But really beautifully done, Laura. I think it's so elegant, and I'm so excited for the possibilities.
Thank you. Okay, before we go to Alex, I know last time, Sofia, because I know it's 6 hours ahead. I want to go to you for comments, at least 6 hours, maybe 7.
It's 6 hours, yeah. No, I'll just echo literally everything that Carl said and keep it simple. So, and Laura, I really appreciate your work on all of this. I really admire it, and I think it's I hope we pass it today. So
thank you.
I think it's lovely.
Yeah, I want Sophia to go to bed as soon.
With a smile.
Carl said it wonderfully. I think we shouldn't be prejudging what the outcome is from DOT. So even Jay should vote for this unless you don't want anybody to even look at it, because you don't want to know what the answer would be. We're just asking, like, what do they think? What are the traffic implications?
I want them to look at it, but I do want them to take special note of the M11. I don't know if we can add that to
Yeah,
the
I'm keeping a running list.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I love Carl's enthusiasm every time he speaks. It's very invigorating. So thank you, Carl, for joining us.
That's why he's.
Anytime.
I know what he is.
I'll just propose a way to hopefully thread the needle a little bit. I very much appreciate all the work that has gone into it, and I also understand some of the concerns. And I don't know that that's necessarily from what I'm hearing, anything that we need to engage in at this point. For purposes of crafting a resolution, I think what we might want to do is have a statement that the board as a whole is in favor of creating opportunities to increase pedestrian space and for DOT looking at ways to be able to implement traffic calming measures where appropriate. And in particular, we're asking them to focus on this district as a whole. And from my own personal standpoint, just looking at this, I'd encourage them to look at the broader neighborhood as a whole, from 67th all the way up to 72nd. I think we have heard a number of concerns. Maybe 69th Street is going to create a bottleneck. Maybe it's not large enough to handle the through traffic. And I think what I'm hearing us say is, we don't know. And so for a resolution, we should just ask DOT, here is the widest scope of our area of interest. Please look at this. Here's what our priorities are. And I think at that level of generality, it should be able to accomplish all of our goals without having to say, we want 2 lanes for through traffic for a bus, or we don't want a planter here, things like that. So
Yeah, I think it's not just north and south too, it's eastern. I mean, it's all the way to Columbus. And Nicole has been involved in some of these discussions from the Columbus bid, but I think also looking
What
at.
about Monica from?
Yeah.
As-
I think
as-
Well, we're gonna go around the table, but, and then Jay will go.
I'm just saying what I've said so many times already. The perfect should not be animated. This is actually
This
very
has been a
good, so I'll give you that much. Thank you very much.
I have a question and then a comment. The question is, so you said it was basically 4 lanes, which includes what now is a parking lane. It would basically reduce it to 2 traffic lanes. One would be the bus lane, the other would be this local delivery only. That local delivery only, is that's, I guess, so 1 lane. So when you have a delivery truck dropping it off, what happens to the other traffic? I mean, I guess they
It's
go into the, they
Go around like we do now and
go
everybody's
around, so
double
then,
parking.
but they could go into the bus
They would have to
lane
go into the bus lane just to
around.
pass the vehicle that's in the.
Got it. So you would have cars that are going into the bus lane to go around
Yes,
the
you would.
park to vehicles.
Yes, you
Okay,
would.
that's a.
Which
and-
goes back to Shane's concern.
Yeah.
And then my second one is, I don't think we need like a study as smart as people can academically talk about this. I mean, I think the solution, in my opinion, the biggest real objection would be how it could potentially negatively impact traffic patterns. I think you just shut it off at different times and see what happens to the traffic. And if it really has a negative impact, you have that discussion. But I think, like Shay said, if it's just asking for a study, I think it ends up, in a pile of
They have
requests for other studies.
the curb study that they have to do before this
Yeah,
one, so.
because I love stuff like, I mean, I'm supportive of stuff like this, but I just think practically speaking, there's things that people may not like about it, but the most practical impact would be the traffic. What happens to the bus in Amsterdam? Is traffic ended up getting backed up? Is it going down 70th
Special
Street?
attention needs to be.
So.
Are you saying a pilot?
So I just think if there's
To
gonna
the
be a
traffic signal
resolution,
at
I
69th
just think
and
the
Amsterdam.
resolution is, calling
That's the
on
last place
DOT
people have
to
chance.
shut off the street there
Right,
at
right.
different times
what
to
I'm saying.
quickly be able to get traffic pattern data, and that informs it. But asking for a study to look at and
But you said
theorize what
earlier there
happens.
was no change to that area.
Yeah, but that traffic signal at 69th and Amsterdam, which is the last place people have to turn before, I think that's gonna require special treatment and a different kind of length of time for the crosstown street versus the north-south street, unlike it is today.
Okay, okay.
I guess no one's gonna, but anyone can theorize what's going to happen, and then the same people are gonna have the same opinions. But if you actually have data saying we closed it off at all these different times, then you know what the practical effect of it is, and you.
Well, they do it based on traffic data that they already have. They have traffic cameras all over the city.
But they want.
Yeah,
So
but thing,
we can include in the resolution, shut it down as a pilot, if that's the way what you need to do to assess the.
Yeah, I just think that data, people are gonna take it, but if you actually do it, you see what the real effect is.
So that we get the data in real time.
Yeah, and then you use it, yeah, that's.
We can say that's an option.
Okay, we're gonna just, Jamie.
I had my questions answered.
Just,
Thank you.
in speaking of outreach, and have we reached out, I think the Lincoln Square Business Improvement District just is within this.
So
Have we-
we
have
we
we-
talked
with them.
Yeah, and we reached out to them as well.
Okay,
And
have we
Monica
got-
said, thanks for the heads up. They did not send anyone tonight, but they're
Okay.
aware of this and they've been,
Okay, we just don't have an opinion or feedback from them yet.
we don't have feedback.
Okay, that's just my question.
Jay, for the final.
And I don't know why I'm giving this advice. but With respect to Carey, if you embellish a resolution with a much broader scope, it'll take a much faster dive at DOT. That if you're really sincere about wanting them to look at it, there's nothing inherently wrong with that. The more pointed the focus is, the more likely, even though it's not likely, they'll look at it. But a broad study of pedestrian blah, blah, blah in the district, forget about it. So if you're gonna do the
News racks.
resolution.
News racks.
Right?
But that was
Okay.
Darth
I know. He made
Okay,
me
so
go
we're-
out and take a bunch of territory. I had to count the
Oh, and
things.
that data.
We're at 9:05, and I'm getting a phone call from somebody who I think is at the meeting trying to call me, but I'm gonna let it go to voicemail and see.
Well, anyway.
They know how to reach us.
No,
I
fair
really
point, Jerry.
think-
Yeah, okay, so here we go. Any other, I guess,
I have one that would like to speak. I just promoted her.
okay, that might be who was calling me, so. I don't maybe not. Go ahead, James. Who is it? Could you
It's
please announce
Wendy.
yourself?
Wendy Polis.
Hi, Wendy. Are you there, Wendy?
And
Let's give you
Monica. Boom.
Oh, Monica,
Monica's there.
great.
Well, I'm promoting her now, so just give her a few minutes before I could switch over.
Wendy, are you there? Okay, so while we're waiting to get Monica promoted, what I'm catching so far, number one is, oh, is
Sorry.
that Wendy?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Okay, we already have a park at 72nd to 73rd Street, which is a very well-used open space. This setup that we're talking about now is not going to solve anything of the problems that we have between 70 and 71st Street and Amsterdam Avenue. If anything, it's only going to congest it even more. So I'm totally opposed to this plan. Just wanted to express my opinion.
Thank you.
And I live right above it all, so I see everything.
Right, thank you. That's important to hear.
Elizabeth, I also promoted Monica and Ralph. They've been here since the beginning of the meeting, so I just want to point that
Oh,
out.
Monica and Ralph, we didn't see you, so thank you for joining us, and please weigh in. And we're, I think, almost at yeah, that's great. Thank you. Over to you.
Oh, Monica, she's here, so I'll let her speak. This is the first time we're seeing this plan, though. So I think we really have to digest it and get back to you. But I kind of would agree with what Wendy just said, that this doesn't really solve the congestion issue at 72nd Street, north of 71st Street in the bow tie. So I think, and I think Steve had a good thing to say too. We need a little more stakeholder input. What are there, 15 people at that meeting, making a huge decision like this for the entire neighborhood?
So Ralph, I just want to make sure if you were here at when we discussed this 20 minutes ago, we mentioned that tonight's discussion is about, we're not making any decisions. set
It's
in
for a
stone.
study, right? But the word pilot keeps coming up, so we know how that works.
Well, it might be, but what we're talking about is this is not a city agency proposal that's
Right.
coming to you blindsided without any, but, and I forgive me, I thought that you all had participated in the meeting back in November.
No, because that was
No, we have not.
that was never on an agenda. So we
Right, and we've never been, never seen.
It actually, okay.
We've
It
never
was not on the
seen
agenda.
this.
Okay,
So
well,
I
it was
just
on the
want-
agenda for this meeting, and I
For this
notified you
meeting,
guys, and
For
I
this
notified you
meeting.
guys.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
we
just-
notified you. Yep, go
So
ahead.
I just want to say that, first of all, our district goes to the south side of 70th Street. And the real problems are north of our district, where you've got to deal, and you've been unable, no one has been able to deal with Sherman Square. I was delighted to see that Andrew Genn offered to partner on that.
And that Broadway Mall north of us with the benches and seating, no one has ever tackled that. We do the 10 blocks of Broadway. We maintain those Broadway malls, and we spend an awful lot of money doing that. The other thing that no one is taking into account is, and first of all, someone said there's no place to gather. Verdi Square has been redone. There's lots of seating. There's new plantings. So there is a place to gather. And then no one is taking into account the incredible cost of putting out tables and chairs. We've totally transformed Dante Park, but we spend a fortune, and Tucker as well. Tables and chairs and maintaining them are incredibly costly. And to just come up with an idea to close the north side of Broadway, without, and putting out seating and this and that, someone has to pay for that. And certainly we would not take it on in our district. The other thing I want to mention is diverting traffic to the west. In addition, and I think Shane mentioned the supermarket. I mean, that's a very congested block, that short block between Broadway and Amsterdam. Loading trash, it's a mess. It's really a real challenge. And then 67th Street, not only is Merkin there, but there's a public school there. Public school, elementary school, it's a music school. You can't start sending traffic. It's also a very short block. So, you know, this is it might be an interesting idea, but the focus should be on Sherman Square, the McDonald's area. That's been under discuss. I started this job almost 30 years ago, and nothing has changed in that little corner there. That's what this pilot should tackle. Fixing up Sherman Square, take down the fence, which we suggested years ago, so that plantings can be taken care of. You can't take care of plantings with that fence. It's very high and it's mostly locked. And the mall across from Sherman, if you're going to close anything, that's what you do. You join that mall to Sherman Square and fix up the McDonald's. So, you know, it's an interesting idea. It's great that everyone wants to make more pedestrian space and more seating, but you've got to look at the incredible costs of these things. And I'm happy to share our budget. We've offered over the years to work with the people who live above that, in that building at 70th Street. And we've tried to improve, you know, we've told them they have to get the businesses to weigh in and make some improvements, but there's been no interest whatsoever. And, you know, our funding comes from an assessment, and that pays for all the things that we do. But you've got to figure out, you can't just say, have a pilot and close streets and put out tables and chairs without taking into account all the other ramifications. And so
Monica, those are all really, really strong points and much appreciated. I just wanted to briefly address one thing, since I hadn't spoken yet about this. To your point about the financial cost, which I agree with, I am wondering how in addition to DOT, I know that the Department of Public Realm has been working on various small projects like this. They've also taken on, you know, Fifth Avenue and put in $100 million or $50 million?
Yeah, but there's a bid there that.
Right, no, but my point is that I think that's hopefully something that we could work with. And one of the things I want to propose in the resolution that we do tonight is to seek their guidance as well on this, because I think perhaps there could be some avenues on the funding level for a project like this.
This proposal won the participatory budget for CB7 the year before last, and the funds were reallocated to lighting at Verdi Square because it needs to be a tangible project, not a traffic study. So there is funding for whatever painting or bollards or planters. Certainly tables and chairs might not happen. It could just be space that the local businesses spill into. I'm just saying that we really need to give some attention to this area.
But you need a maintenance partner for these. So years ago, the community board, let me just say this, community board put a bike share in front of, and this was on 65th Street, 65th, 66th Street. bike share in front of Shunli. And they put a bike share there and planters, and no one uses the bike share and the planters are not maintained. So you can't do these things unless there's a maintenance. I think one of the problems that's been in the press recently is open streets has been reduced because they can't get funding to support community groups to put out the barricades you were talking about. And so I think it's a great idea to try to do this north of our district, but we're not in a position to start maintaining barricades within the district. So I think the focus should really be 70th Street.
Monica, I think these are all really good points. This is the beginning of a conversation that we're having with Laura. I'm going to cut off or just complete now most of the community piece. And if there are factual questions, we can then move
This
forward.
is somewhat off point, but what happened to the open street this past weekend?
That was Columbus Avenue.
Yeah, that was Columbus Avenue.
That's
Yeah, we
not our
don't
bid.
do that.
So I have the same question. We can talk about that offline. Okay, so we don't have a resolution on the table yet, but I think she's seeking one. So I think we know the basics of what we would want to put in it based on the conversation around the table. I guess the main question I have for the resolution is pilot or no pilot. And I think I would propose we ask DOT to implement a pilot on this proposal with,
Only if they think it's feasible.
right, if they think it's feasible.
So you can ask them to study it, including the possibility.
I would second that.
But to ask them to do a pilot is a whole different.
No, they gotta
Okay.
study it first.
I think they study it and then I would second are you making a motion?
No,
I have a few more things to add to that too.
definitely not.
Okay, so now we're back to a study.
I would make a motion that we ask DOT to study this proposal in, with the possibility of doing a pilot. With the possibility of doing.
Okay.
Are we contemplating taking a vote on this proposal tonight?
A vote on whether we want to move forward on a study.
But then,
The resolution.
you're
study.
asking us to vote on a resolution
Yes,
tonight.
yes.
But you said a pilot first, now you've moved it to
I'm
a study.
listening and I think that,
Then
no.
I'll put my voice, I support a pilot, so.
Okay. I mean, I think there was some concern about whether a study would accomplish anything.
I'm just trying to say they wouldn't do it if
Having
it's
the
not
FAA.
feasible. If we ask for a pilot and they determine it's not feasible, they're not gonna do it. So I think it's silly
I
to
think
ask.
the issue is they're not gonna study this, they're not gonna do anything about this issue if we don't bring it to their attention. And our
That's-
goal tonight is to bring it to their attention in an official way through a resolution. That is the
I
basics
support a
of what we're
pilot.
trying to do. Whether that ends up being a pilot or whether it ends up being a study, we wanna bring it to their attention so that they get back to us.
So what are
on
you
this.
saying about?
And I think if I could just.
Jamie's,
I think, yes, I think the only thing I would add is that I think in addition, no, I think just in addition to DOT, we should also reach out, ask the Department of Public Realm to look at this as well. So that it's two different city agencies. Is that? Everyone? Okay.
Yeah, we have this on the agenda as a community presentation, and especially given the different comments that have been circulated, for myself, I'm not comfortable taking a vote. I think if there's text for us to consider, we can talk about whether we want friendly amendments to say A, B, or C, but I don't think for something like this, a framework discussion with a quick vote to present at the next full board in a couple of weeks is the right way forward. I think if we're gonna have a resolution, we should prepare a resolution. We've heard, and then we should discuss it, but it's very late at night. This wasn't circulated for that before, and I think we're gonna have.
That is a good
Point of
point.
fact, did in our agenda, did we not say possible resolution on the agenda?
We did not.
Okay.
And we did not.
And we did not find out about
Carey made
the
some
interest
good
in a
points.
proposed resolution until after we had published the agenda. So.
So Carey, you would like to see a draft of a resolution and then have further discussion before we vote on the resolution?
I think we've seen enough of the presentation. I think the points that other people have made about having an opportunity to solicit community feedback, I don't know if we'll receive it, but I think all of that suggests that at our next regularly scheduled meeting, we put it as an agenda item and then we do it then.
I would just like to add that Laura did agree to have this item held over from last month to make room for the summonses issue, which was deemed urgent, of utmost urgency. So we, just so you know, that's why it's this month and it was not on the agenda for last month. That would mean that we have this as sort of our main item on the agenda for September's meeting, and that we make sure we will have 3 months for the community to be duly noted and notified so that they can come and participate in that meeting. If there are any, I guess, changes or updates that you want to make based on this conversation tonight, which I think has been helpful, that would be great. And then we can plan to vote in September, unless there is any sort of reason that you're thinking of why between now and then there's a resolution that would be needed.
Yeah, I think it's great to give people a chance to digest this and consider all those areas in pink, the shortened crosswalks, the safety benefits. You know, there's a lot of negatives, but it's not just the pedestrian plaza that's the benefit. It's pedestrian safety is the primary benefit of this proposal.
And would you be open, maybe over the course of the summer, we could get some of these stakeholders together just to talk about how we move forward in September? I
that's a great
anticipate
idea.
it potentially being a very large meeting, and we may have other items on the agenda in September, so we may need to do a separate.
And it wouldn't be adopted till October, full board technically.
Yes.
You're okay waiting?
Absolutely. I
Okay.
think this is too big of an idea to rush it through.
Okay.
It's not like the criminal sentence.
And Jamie's right, there is.
Plus, it'll
I mean,
sit for 5 years,
Yeah.
once you make the resolution.
You're very optimistic.
Jamie very aptly just made a point that we are likely going to meet as a committee in July, given the DOT items that came towards us. That would be a long meeting if we include this in July. I personally think we may need to wait until September.
I think we should
People will
make the
be,
July meeting short.
yes. So let's keep this on September. If that's, Jamie, is that okay with you? Okay. Okay. Thank you for your point, Carey. I know that we're all, a lot of us want to act on this and be responsive to you, but I think we're all in agreement that we'll wait. And thank you for the presentation tonight. Thank you all for staying late. Is there any new business or any, I think my only piece of new business, a couple things came before me a while ago that I wanted to just briefly raise with committee members, just in terms of, and we're all guilty of using our phones all the time. I communicate with Jessie about items, but if we could just ask people to try to refrain from using their phones during the meeting. That was brought to my attention by a couple of outside people lately, and we'd appreciate it if.
When I'm using my phone, it's only to read stuff.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Like the agenda.
That's fine, but again, just, I think, because a lot of people in the public don't know that, and we just want to make sure everyone knows that we're paying attention in the meeting, that's all. Okay, so not scolding anyone, just raising it because a member of the community did bring it up, and I feel it's our responsibility to bring it to the committee. So, anything else?
No.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you at full board at the end of July.
Sophia,
Thanks, everyone, for coming.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Go out and have fun now.
Yeah.
Wait.
Wait.